I am employed by a hotel in the adjacent area, which also owns a piece of property directly adjacent, and I am also a member of the advisory committee for Mount Carmel.
So noted. Thank you. Are there any others? Yes, Councillor Wing.
Yes, the Board of Museums presentation and the related report. My spouse is employed there.
Okay, on the Board of Museums, that will be item under the consent agenda. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry. That's the first beforehand. I see it here. Sorry, thank you. So noted. Item number 1. Thank you. Are there any others? Okay, we'll move on then. Members of Council, ladies and gentlemen, the first item on the agenda is a deputation. This evening we have the Niagara Falls Red Raiders under 15 midget girls basketball team, who are going to be recognized for winning Division I of the Ontario Basketball Association Championship. And we have them here with us. I'm going to just explain in a moment what they accomplished. We do have the coaches this evening with us as well, and I wanted to have them say a few words as soon as we make our presentation. The culmination of 4 years growing as a team paid off on Sunday, May 3rd, 2009, in a basketball tournament in London, Ontario. Going into the tournament, the Niagara Falls Red Raiders, were the under-15 midget girls basketball team, were ranked second out of a 12 Division I teams. The Kitchener-Waterloo Lightning team was ranked first. In a dramatic overtime win over London, the Niagara Falls Red Raiders under-15 midget basketball team, girls basketball team, captured the Division I tournament championship. And this is the first Division I gold medal championship won by any Red Raiders girls team at any level in their association's history, and they're the second team in the association's history to win a gold medal. The leading scorers for the Niagara Falls over the course of the weekend were Victoria Rampato, Vanessa Rampato, Casey Nichols, and Veronica Patterson. I'd like to call upon the team and staff to come forward to receive our congratulations as a token of our pride for their outstanding efforts. I'm going to ask them to come individually, but I'd like to ask the coaches to join me, please. Coach John Ingrabelli and Coach Rick Rampato. Actually joining with us as well this evening is our MPP, Kim Crater. He has some acknowledgments to make as well. So Kim, do you want to come forward? Do you want to say a few words before we make our presentation?
I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. Now, we have Taylor Hiltz. First of all, we'll call on Taylor. Congratulations, Taylor.
Congratulations.
Mary Ingrabelli. Oh, I said it right. Congratulations. Thank you. There you go. Can you take that?
Taylor, can you manage? Yeah. Okay. Congratulations.
Shannon Haldorson. Alderson. Congratulations. There you go. Congratulations. Madison Levine. Congratulations, Madison. There you go. Alyssa McCabe. Casey Nichols. Casey's not here? Okay. Veronica Patterson. Congratulations. Thank you. Chelsea O'Donoghue. Congratulations, Chelsea. There you go. Vanessa Rampado. Congratulations. You want to step forward now? And Veronica Rampado. Victoria. I'm sorry, Victoria. Victoria Rampado. Sorry. Congratulations, Victoria. There you go. There you go. Congratulations. And we have with us, of course, Coach John Ingerbelli. Coach, congratulations. Assistant Coach of State and Coach Rick Rampado. Rick, okay. Maybe we can ask Coach Rampado to offer a few words about the exciting event and to congratulate the ladies as well.
First of all, I'd like to thank the City of Niagara Falls for these awards. It was a great honor to receive them. We were very surprised by this. Secondly, I'd like to thank the association, the Red Raiders Association. We have Guy Caparicci, who's our existing president right now, for all their support that they've given us throughout the years. The girls, I can't say enough about them. They all pulled together this year. To win Division I throughout Ontario was a high honor. They worked hard for a number of months throughout the number of years, never mind number of months, the number of years, and they all gave an extremely great effort for this. And I thank them. They did all the work. I just put it together, but they did all the work. Thanks, girls.
Congratulations.
First, I want to say to the team, congratulations. It's my honor to be here. I can tell you at Parliament we were watching and rooting for you, just so you know. The Premier was speaking highly of you, as what he always does. Sort of all kidding aside, having grown up in this community, the Red Raiders is one of the greatest organizations that exist in Niagara Falls. I remember when they first came to me and I was in City Council, and I've seen many of the players that have gone on and been very successful. So to win a division like that, having been involved in sports, that takes a lot of work. The coaches are okay. That makes a difference. No, the coaches are the key point. So just wanted to say congratulations, and I wanted to come down and personally do that. And I want to thank the mayor for allowing me to be here tonight as well. So thank you very much.
And ladies, on behalf of you as well, on behalf of the members of council, we're very proud of you, and it was our pleasure to acknowledge you this evening, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
I like the red sweater. Thank you.
In addition, ladies and gentlemen, we have another team we wish to acknowledge this evening. The Niagara Falls Rapids won the Ontario Women's Hockey Association Adam B Provincial Championship during the weekend of April 18th and 19th, 2009. At the Provincial Championship Tournament in Mississauga, the Rapids conquered Cornwall and Sudbury in round-robin play. Then advanced to the quarterfinals, defeating Orangeville and Walkerton in the semifinals. They defeated Woolwich 2-0 in the championship game. After a successful season where they won the regular season and the league playoff title, the provincial championship was the icing on the cake. According to Coach Rick Morocco, the team held a team-first attitude that really set them apart. Again, special recognition should be given to 10-year-old Madison Kelson for her goaltending efforts throughout the season and the championships. Congratulations to all the team members, coaches, trainers, managers as well. So we have with us this evening the coaches. I'm going to ask the coaches to come forward, please. Rick Morocco and Dave Juris. Trainer Annie Ferguson and Dorothy Weems as the manager. Thank you for being here. Thank you. I'd like the goalie, Madison Kelson, to come forward first, please. Congratulations. There you go. Okay. Come on over here, if you would. Okay. Beside you. Okay. The defense players, Karina Juris. Serena here. Congratulations, Serena. There you go. Another defenseman, Kiana McCarthy. Congratulations, Serena. There you go.
Okay. Here, congratulations.
Also in defense, Cassandra Cristiano. Is she here? Okay. And another defense player, Haley Ryan. Haley? Congratulations, Haley.
Kelly, congratulations.
Okay, that's it. And on defense, Jaden Ferguson. Tess Morocco.
Congratulations. There you go. Congratulations.
Emily Ward.
Emily, well done.
Gabriella Blanchfield. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Morgan German. Victoria Cristiano. Okay. Jessica Weens. And our coaches, Rick Morocco. Rick, congratulations. Dave Juris. And the trainee, Annie Ferguson.
Not here.
Not here?
That's
Okay.
my mom. Also.
Okay. Annie, okay, very good. And also the manager, Dorothy Weens. Good. And perhaps again the coach can give us some remarks, please.
Well, it was a tremendous year for this young group of girls who came to us back in September. We absolutely had no idea what we had. However, every day they came to practice. They worked tremendously hard. They gave it their all. They were a joy to work with. They were never cocky. They were always right at work, out on the ice. They never thought they were too good. And obviously, in the end, it really showed. They came and did their job, and they don't realize the tremendous success that they had this year. Not very many teams win everything, every championship throughout the year, and this team certainly did. And it was through hard work, and in the end, it was through becoming a team. So they really gelled together, and we're very proud of how it was all about them. It wasn't about the coaches. The girls went and did the job. So kudos to the girls.
Again, I just want to echo what I said earlier. Congratulations. I have to tell you, this girls hockey is kind of near and dear to me. I can remember when two special people, I won't forget this, came to my house. Sandy Hall and Ken Eastman, I hope they're watching. And they came by the house and said, we're thinking of forming girls hockey in Niagara Falls. And because I've been involved in sports, would you help out? And I said, that's a good idea. And I still have, and it's in Parliament, it sits in my office there, the first 4 teams that were created by girls hockey. and then to watch what's gone on from there. There's been so many successes, and your tonight is another great success. I think 4 of you will become politicians. I want to congratulate you. There's 2 over there I think will be mayors. So you're all going in the right direction. So all kidding aside, I know what it takes to win a championship. I've been involved in hockey for a number of years, so it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and the support of your parents too as well. And my favorite is the goalie. My son was a goalie, and I know what the pressure is of being a goaltender, so congratulations to you as well. It's a special night. Thank you.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the members of council, to the coaches, certainly, and to the young ladies, you're champions. We're very proud of you. You represent our city well, and keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Members of Council, the next item on the agenda is a presentation by Mr. Don Jackson on behalf of the Board of Museums. He's going to be making a presentation to Council and will advise us on 4 major sponsors for the project as well at the museum expansion and renovation. So I'm going to turn over the microphone to Don Jackson. Good evening, Don, and welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councilors, staff, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Mr. Todd. We go back a bit in the olden days. Welcome back to Niagara Falls. With me tonight is the chair of the Board of Museums, George West. Also, Director Dino Fazio and Museums Manager Kathy Powell.
Welcome.
Niagara Falls is indeed privileged to have a council and a senior staff, thank you, who understand the importance of preserving our community's history and who have demonstrated that belief by putting full support behind the Lundy's Lane Battlefield Legacy Project. As you were aware, this project will create a legacy gift to commemorate the bicentennial of the War of 1812 and the Battle of Lundy's Lane in the city of Niagara Falls. It will honor the significant impact left by these events on our city, as well as on the development of Canada as a nation. Tonight marks a major milestone in the development of this project, with the appointment of an architectural firm for the expansion and renovation of the Lundy's Lane Historical Museum. This project is being funded through a federal, provincial, municipal partnership, with each level of government contributing 1/3 of the total cost. The Niagara Falls Board of Museums is conducting its own capital fundraising campaign of $2 million to provide half of the municipal share. A significant portion of this campaign goal is being raised from private donors in exchange for the naming rights for various aspects of the project. The balance will come from those members of the general public who are committed to supporting heritage preservation in our community. The whole world of philanthropy exists because good people are dedicated to making the lives of others better. The world becomes a better place because of their involvement. Niagara Falls is extremely fortunate to have such individuals and groups in its midst, and the Board of Museums is even more fortunate that many of these individuals and groups have a very strong interest in heritage matters. I would like to publicly recognize 4 such individuals and groups at this time. You may recall many months ago, it seems like years, when we first came to council with this exciting proposal, prior to any financial commitment by council, we indicated that we already had secured a six-figure pledge in support of our campaign. The expansion to the museum will contain a Lundy's Lane Battlefield Visitor Center, complete with an exciting audio-visual presentation, as well as a separate gallery housing our nationally significant collection of artifacts related to the War of 1812. The Visitor Center will carry the name of the largest single donor to our campaign, a pledge of $300,000. This particular individual recognizes the importance of preserving our community's special history for both residents as well as visitors to our great city. He is also a private collector of historical artifacts in his own right, many of which have special significance to the Niagara area. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to announce that the new visitor center to be located in the expanded museum will be known as the Gale Family Battlefield Visitor Center. And I would ask Bob to come forward. Mr. Mayor, I wonder if you would participate in a very brief ceremony.
Certainly.
Of check passing ceremony, and then I would ask Bob to say a few words.
Right here?
Right.
Seems like every time I come here to Tiger, it costs me $100,000.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you. I'll try and be short. When Don came and told me about it, I said, well, this brings school kids here rather than going skiing for winter break and things like this, where I think it's not as much benefit. Plus, at that time I was on the Niagara Parks Board, and I thought that it'd be nice to have kids around here to understand the value of the Glen, the Battle of Lundy's Lane. If we can tie it into Fort Erie through Fort George, that we want, if we can all get together on it. Plus with 2012 coming. So hopefully this will enhance Main and Ferry area, and hopefully it will achieve that purpose. Enough said.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad that secret's out. We're all aware of the vital role played by BIAs in our community. The Lundy's Lane Historical Museum is fortunate to be located within the area of the Main and Ferry BIA, an organization that is working diligently to ensure the revitalization of historic Drummondville. We are pleased to be considered a partner in this enterprise, and are quite certain that the museum expansion and renovation will be a catalyst for furthering the development of this historic area in our city. Early on in the development of our project, the Main and Ferry BIA recognized the need to be involved. And in spite of, and I don't say this in a bad way, in spite of the organization's limited financial resources, provided us with a cash donation of $5,000 to the campaign. Leadership and vision in an organization such as this is absolutely essential, and I am so pleased to introduce such a person to you again, the chair of the Main and Ferry BIA, Ruth Ann Newestate.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be part of the museum project. I'm kind of nervous that we only have little funds, but it's a large amount of funds that we are able to contribute to the project. We are also working with the city with the streetscape meeting that should help enhance the whole museum project as well. And we thank you very much for being part of our project, sharing the same vision as we do. It's very important that we all come together and promote the same vision. Thank you very much.
There are businesses within our city that we all deal with on a regular basis. We receive their services, we pay our bills, usually on time, but not too often do we realize how much they give back in order to make our community a better place in which to live, work, and play. The directors of the Niagara Falls Hydro Holding Corporation is one such group. Under the chairmanship of Councillor Wayne Thompson and General Manager Brian Wilkie, a pledge of $100,000 has been made to sponsor the new events courtyard and covered walkway to be developed at the museum. This is an exciting development. Museums are usually seen to be something indoors and behind glass. This courtyard space will provide an outdoor amphitheatric space to be used for educational programming, staged events, and exhibits. The covered walkway will provide pedestrian linkages that connect major features of the historic Drummondville area, including the museum, the farmers market, and the battlefield grounds. And through you, Mr. Thompson, we thank you very much. Finally, major naming opportunities are also available to honor the memory of loved ones. This will be the case in the naming of what we are calling the Stairwell Gallery, an expansive vertical surface between the current building and the new addition for recessed displays and exhibitry. A pledge of $50,000 has been made by the West family. And yes, this is our Chair Gord West, along with his sister, Mags Barrett, and his brother, Forbes West. They have made this pledge to name this gallery in honor of their parents, General F.B. West and Christine West. For your information, General West spent over 40 years involved directly with the Army Reserves and retired from service in 1972. Following his retirement, he was the honorary commandant of Fort York for 15 years. General West was an avid amateur Canadian military historian. His wife Christine supported and encouraged him in his quest for ever more information on our country and its noble past. The West family thought it fitting to dedicate a room to them in a museum that rests so close to the site of the Battle of Lundy's Lane, a pivotal battle in the war that was to lead to the upcoming celebration of 200 years of peace between two great nations. And unfortunately, Forbes is unable to be here, but I do want to introduce, you already know Gord, but please, Mags, would you stand? And also, keep that name, Mags Barrett, in your minds, because you'll be hearing a lot from her as we go along. She is very much involved in organizing a gala fundraiser just prior to the opening of the newly expanded and renovated museum. For your general information, Council, our fundraising efforts to date are approaching $750,000, both in cash donations and pledges. Based on current negotiations with other potential major sponsors, we hope to be able to report at our next update to you that we will have reached $1.4 million, or 70% of our fundraising goal. It is totally exciting to me to be involved in a project that brings forth people who enjoy heritage matters like this. So I thank you for your support. May I ask Gord to say a few words. I will attempt to keep it brief. John and I are here together. You know we're going to take up a lot of time, so. We have not yet had an opportunity to thank those people that have helped us through. I am looking at a group right now who have been instrumental in laying the groundwork, not only for starting the money to come in by your unanimous approval of the $2 million that you gave us, but that was the foundation for being able to bring money from both the provincial and the federal government. So thank you to the council, your worship. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank city staff who have been enormously helpful and even more patient with us as we go through this process and continue to be up to the most recent thing, which is picking our architect. I want to thank my board and our staff who have been relentless in their pursuit of this project. There are also two other people that I would like to thank Shirley, who's been on my back these 15 years to make sure that this continues on through both on and off the board. Thank you very much, Shirley. I would like to thank two people that have not yet been mentioned in any of this. Margaret Ann Tabaka and Jean Culp. Margaret Ann was our former curator at the Lundy County Historical Museum. Jean Culp was the one that did everything else there. The two of them were there 22 years ago when we started this. They have pushed us, and Margaret Ann pushes me from time to time. If you're out there, Margaret Ann, I still hear you pushing me on this. And I would like to make sure that everyone knows that they are a huge part of what we are doing here. But once again, thank you very much.
And once again, on behalf of the members of council, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the efforts of both Don Jackson and Gord West for their ongoing efforts on many fronts, in particular this evening, and the Museums Board and their staff for their complete dedication on this project. You have, gentlemen, made a presentation to us. You're certainly honoring that. You're following through with and delivering with your commitment. We appreciate that. We wish you great success. And as you know, and you did state, the council is behind you. So on behalf of the members of council, we thank you and the staff and the Museums Board in Niagara Falls. Thank you so much. Now, members of council, we have a motion to deal with. We have an administrative matter here on the report, and the clerk's reminded me he has distributed to you an amendment recommendation we have before us on MW 2009-37. We have a recommendation report, but there's a further recommendation that the firm of Moriyama and Tashima be awarded the architectural assignment for the construction of the Niagara Falls Museum at an upset limit of $947,000, and that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement. Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Iononi. Any further discussion by members of council? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's passed unanimously. Thank you. Unanimously with one conflict of interest noted by Janice Wing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, could you introduce the next item on the agenda, please?
Your Worship, a public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city's official plan to permit a residential condominium hotel development at 6881 Stanley Avenue. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, May 8th, 2009, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the official plan amendment and to preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets outside the council chamber.
And this time I'm going to ask Mr. Bob Rolovic of the Planning Department to explain the purpose and the reason for the proposed bylaw amendment. Mr. Rolovic, would you like to proceed?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to take everyone through a PowerPoint presentation here. Just to start off, the proposal deals with an official plan amendment. There are two issues related to the amendment. It's one to allow for high-rise buildings, and secondly, it's a special. They are asking for a special policy area to allow for the building heights over 30 stories. Just to give you an idea of the location, we're dealing with the site in blue here, and around there to the north is additional high-rise hotels, To the east is the former Michigan Central Railway, Portage Road, and Queen Victoria Park. To the south is Our Lady of Peace Chapel and Hall, and we also have the Mount Carmel Center. And to the west, we have lands that are being constructed currently for the convention center. This is just an aerial of the lands that gives you a little bit of perspective of the site and how we have high-rise to the north. The center itself is located basically in the central part of the site. It's about 7.5 acres. We have some important trees to the north. The main access off Stanley Avenue, and we've got the old railway and Queen Victoria Park further to the east, and the Mount Carmel, or pardon me, the Our Lady of Peace Hall and Our Lady of Peace Chapel, or the current church. This gives you an idea as to the size and the number of towers that we are looking at. We have the main tower at 57 stories as a request. This is the hatched line that is the existing Loretto building. This area here will is an atrium proposed, and then the main towers in this area here. The north tower is 42 stories being proposed, and the south tower is 32 stories. What the proponent is looking for as an opportunity to allow for those three towers to be developed. This will be strictly a hotel. The north and south towers may be hotels only, but may be a split with some hotels and some residential condominiums. For the increase in height of the three buildings, there are two issues or two items that the proponent has said he will protect. Number one is the building itself, the Loretto building, and secondly is the green space here, open space that will be protected. We're unsure as to the extent of the protection of these buildings, whether they'll be further to the east or west, but that will be determined at the zoning bylaw stage. For some background, the applicant has requested the two changes as I outlined. One is the amendment to the Schedule 4 to allow for high-rise buildings, and secondly is a special policy area that will be placed in the official plan to allow buildings over 30 stories. As I said, in return, the applicant has said he will reserve the Loretto building. He'll also provide some landscaped area between the front of the building and to the east property line. Generally, we deal with applications on a more comprehensive basis. The OP and zoning amendment sometimes are dealt with concurrently. In this case, the applicant has only asked for the official plan amendment to be processed. There's going to be a number of studies that are going to be necessary. These studies will be part of the future zoning bylaw amendment. So the point is that we're really early in the stage of development of this proposal. There's the outline of the different buildings and the heights, and then related to the height in metric and feet. We know the tallest building is the center one, and that's where the Loretto building will be attached. And the other two buildings will be hotels and or residential units. Sorry for that. Get that back, team? Thanks. Thank you. The next one is there. This is just very touchy. This is a view from the Niagara River, so it gives you an idea as to the existing Loretto building and how that will be protected. And then we have the three other buildings being the 57-story in the middle, and 42 to the right or the north, and the 32 to the south to the left. This is a prospectus from Stanley Avenue. This is what you'll see along Stanley Avenue. You'll still see some remnants of the existing building, but it'll be over back behind to the west of the existing Loretto building. To get into some planning analysis, under the provincial policy, the proposal is consistent with the provincial growth plan of the Greater Golden Horseshoe. This is something we have to abide by. It's an opportunity for high-density residential development, which again supports the provincial goals of intensifying use. As far as our official plan, it provides an opportunity to develop the high-rise above 30 stories within a central tourist district. And this is the district that we want to see high-rises developed. It complies with the intent of the official plan because it's contiguous to an existing area that has buildings over 30 stories. We know this area is an important node for the convention center, and it will be allow for accommodations for people that will utilize that facility down the road. We know the site of Stanley Avenue in this area functions as an entry corridor, and what the official plan does require when you're dealing with high-rises is that it have a sufficient distance from residential. And in this case, we're about 500 feet away from the closest residential being along Rogers Crescent. Now, adopting special policy will allow buildings in excess of 30 stories in exchange for certain things. And in this case, we've got the protection of the heritage building and also the land in front of that. The heights within the central tourist district are generally 30 stories, but does allow additional height if it meets certain requirements, such as being separated from residential. We know that there have been other hotels in the area that are in excess of 30 stories. They're mentioned there. The OP acknowledges the importance of protecting and conserving the heritage resources, such as the existing center, and we have policies that guide the development of those towers through the city's built form guidelines. As I said, the policies that are being proposed will be implemented through the zoning bylaw. To ensure these heritage features are going to be retained, there's going to be several studies required. One will be the Heritage Impact Assessment Study. This will tell us the significant heritage items on the site. The proposal may have to be revised as a result of the results of that study. There will be a tree inventory and preservation plan. There will be an archaeological impact assessment. We know there are graves associated with the Our Lady of Peace church, which may encroach on these lands, so we have to know that information. Any high-rise above 10 stories has to go through an architectural peer review. That has yet to be completed and will be obviously subject to this development. There'll be a microclimate analysis, shadowing, traffic impacts. All those items, there's probably in the order of 9 or 10 studies that will be required by the proponent. City's official plan requires certain streetscape improvements, and anything between 4 stories and 30 stories has to provide that. Stanley Avenue has been improved, but there will be a contribution from the proponent on this part of the official plan. For the building heights in excess of 30 stories, the city has required in the past contributions for public capital facilities, and that's through a Section 37 agreement that's provided through the Planning Act as required. So in conclusion, I'd like to inform you that amendments to the OP to allow high-rise development in this area is a logical extension. We have high-rises to the north. Building heights of 30 stories will allow us to protect the existing building and the lands in front of that building. The site has a prominent location overlooking the falls, and for this reason, we would like the policies in the city's built form guidelines to be part of the official plan amendment. The various studies need to be completed as noted, and we have a Section 37 agreement under the Planning Act to require capital facilities. As a recommendation, we are asking council to approve the application, to add the lands to the figure 4 of the official plan. We're also asking for a special policy area that will allow the number of stories above the 30 limit that currently exists in the tourist district. Now, there are certain policies that would be related to the approval. One is the retention and restoration of the Loretto building, the conservation of the landscaped open space in front of it, the adherence to policies to the built form guidelines to ensure the development is sensitive to the general area. There will be the submission of various studies that will have to be satisfied, and there will be under Section 37 the contributions from the proponent. And that, Mr. Mayor, is the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boulderbrook. And once again, members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referral that it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheets will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 17, subsection 24 of the Planning Act. At this time, Council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. We ask you if you come forward, please, to state your name and address for the record, and just to adhere to the 10-minute allowance, if you would. So anyone other than the applicant who wishes to come forward, please do so at this time. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
My name is John Perry, and I'm a registered professional time. I'm here representing the Mount Carmel Spiritual Center. I have my card. I'm not exactly sure.
That's fine. Thank you. We just pass on to the clerk. Thank you.
I have some brief comments to make. First of all, the Mount Carmel Spiritual Center is not opposed to development. However, we are concerned with the size and scale of the project, particularly the proposed 32-story tower and 4-story podium as it abuts our north property line. We believe that there is an opportunity to sit down with the developer to discuss ways to resolve our concerns. I had a longer presentation, but I can tell you that today Father Macasinas met with the developer. It was a good meeting, and we're hopeful that we can negotiate our concerns in the short term. So in summary, we're not opposed to the application. We will be filing a formal letter of objection, just so that legally we're in a position to object if we can't resolve our concerns within the appeal period of the official plan. I'd also like to file with the clerk a letter from Mount Carmel indicating that they have met with the developer. And I'd like to read the first paragraph just to give you an idea of the Mount Carmel's approach to this whole project and its importance. First paragraph indicates that the monastery of Mount Carmel is for development within the city of Niagara Falls, which is a new jobs for people and potential tax revenue for the city. Good development can enhance the lives of people and the ambience of the city. And that's the start of our negotiations. So certainly we're hopeful that we can resolve our concerns within the appeal period of the official plan. But we want to reserve our right to appeal.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Perry. We appreciate your submission, and we'll make sure that clerk gets that information. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak and come forward, please? Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Peter Meyer, and I'm an art dealer promoting the arts and culture of the city of Niagara Falls and tourists and tour operators. I'd like to thank the mayor and council members for the opportunity to say a few words of concerns that I have with this project. I'm generally not opposed to a project like this if it would take place in Manhattan. It is my opinion that the current proposed official plan amendments and the project for Loretto lands are not in the best interest of people as a whole, for future tourism, and even more important for the environment. When we look at the wall of high-rise buildings that have been erected over the years along the riverfront, one surely must wonder, when is this wall going to stop? Or one needs to ask, are all the criteria in planning and approvals in this city strictly revenue-driven to benefit a few? Thanks to institutions like the Carmelite Monastery and Loretto, are we left with precious little green space and trees along the riverbank, sidewalk, the falls, for everybody to enjoy. It is in this time that we look to our council members who are in a position to make decisions to help us protect our environment, historic landmarks like the monastery in Loretto, and its green space for future generations. In closing, I would like to ask the City Council to turn down the proposal of the official plan amendment that is before you tonight and to reject the project as it is proposed at this time in its entirety. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Could I have the next speaker please come forward? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this matter other than the proponent? And once again, is there anyone who wishes to speak to this proposed bylaw amendment other than the proponent? Yes, please come forward. Welcome.
This usually isn't my area that I speak on, but I agree with the previous gentleman that it should be totally rejected. And I think it's a disgrace that the council has failed to designate this as a heritage site under the Ontario Heritage Act. They have full power to do so. To me, it's a railroad job. You're recommending to approve it tonight when this is supposed to be a meeting to take input from the public, go back to your desks, consider what the public says, then come back with a proposal. And the people, I was amazed that there's not more people here given the coverage like you did. But I think people have just given up on this council. And what are we doing with mixing residential with high rises? The next thing you'll know, we'll be developing Queen Victoria Park. And it's really sad what's happening to that area. People tell me they come here and they don't know where they are. And I said, same here. I drive down Stanley. I don't know where I am anymore. And I hope the council gives the public more time to digest this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, please. Please. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the matter? Once again, please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Norma Linden, and I'm a taxpayer in the city. And while I was not here for the whole presentation, the part that I heard was very upsetting to me. It seems to me that you have official planners plan how the city should be laid out, and as soon as anybody with money applies for a zoning change, it just seems to fly through no problem. I'm not against, as the gentleman from Mount Carmel said, we're not against development, but the size and density of this development for the acreage available is incredible. I also wonder, I didn't hear anything about parking. Is there going to be on-site parking? And you say that Stanley Avenue will funnel the traffic down, but I think it's going to be all coming down the Cloud. Now, there will be enough increased traffic coming down the Cloud for the convention center alone without adding this additional huge development as well. So you're going to have more traffic, more cars. Where are you going to put them? What about the pollution? We're talking about saving our air, and here we are. Is this the best we can do? And I certainly don't agree with mixing condominiums in with hotel room. In any case, if there are condominiums and they're residential, where is the school? Where are the facilities for them? It's not right there, so it's get in your car and drive someplace else. Get in your car and drive home someplace else. We just haven't done enough planning on this, and I really don't think, but the other thing is that you should make a change when everything is so much up in the air. Is this going to be one where they can't do it for maybe 20 or 30 years down, but they'll come back and they'll say, but we got approval in 2009, even though this is now 2030, and that means that council can't do anything about it. You have to allow us to do this, even though at that time things may have changed so much that it's not desirable. It's too amorphous, doesn't have enough solid facts for you to make a decision, I would think, and hopefully you won't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brendan. We'll see if we can. Thank you. Order, please. Please, we just ask you to refrain from clapping. Mrs. Gwendon, we'll see if we can have your concerns expressed as well. Well, your questions answered. We'll have a presentation by the proponent. We'll address some of those issues. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak before we call? Yes, please come forward.
Frank Ford, resident in Niagara Falls. I just have one question, which I hope perhaps will be answered by the developer. Just looking at the photograph that we see, the PowerPoint there of the property, and thinking about a tree preservation study. I'm just wondering how a tree preservation study will be consistent with that North Tower. Basically, the North Tower would go right in the middle of the woodlot. And it seems to me that the majority of the trees that are on the property are right in that section. So I'm just wondering about the consistency of thinking about a tree preservation study in the town.
Okay, thank you. We'll just have that one down as well. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward, please? Once again, is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? For the third time? Okay. If not, then we're going to ask for a presentation by the proponent or his agent. If you'd like to come forward, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship. Council, please, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Lustig. For the record, I'm a lawyer with the law firm of Barton and Partners, and I represent the owner of the property, 194 Ontario Limited. For the purposes of disclosure, the number of company that's the owner of this property is owned itself by Tony Zapatelli and Fred Bell, who are both here today. And I think the council is well aware of both of these gentlemen and their families, who are local people who have contributed greatly to this community. They both built up significant and successful businesses in this community, employing many people and achieving international acclaim. They and the businesses pay significant taxes to the city and continue to pay taxes to support the city's operations. They've operated their businesses in an exemplary and ethical fashion. Perhaps more importantly, they and their families have been involved in many community efforts for the good of the residents of the city, and as a result are held in high regard by their fellow citizens. Obviously, in itself, this is a reason for approving an official plan amendment. However, it is important for you to know that these are people with proven track records of achievement and integrity who will do what they say and upon whom you can count. And if I were in your place, that would be a very important consideration for me. Now, I'm joined this evening by Rick Brady of Urban Environmental Management Inc., who's a planner with this project. He's been the quarterback of this project. And you know he has a wealth of experience with developments of this kind. And I'm also joined by Peter Lasdell of Lasdell Associates, who's the architect for this project, and also has a long track record of successful projects. Both of these gentlemen will speak after I conclude their remarks. At the outset, Your Worship, I wish to thank staff for a report that I believe is as comprehensive and as well written as any report that I've experienced in my 35 years around here with respect to the development application. We've worked very closely with your staff on this proposal for over a year, and we've developed the application before you tonight in a comprehensive and thoughtful manner. Contrary to what Mr. Andoni has said, nothing is being railroaded tonight. This is a hearing of the plan that people have noticed, and you're entitled to make a decision after hearing the presentations.
Perhaps, Mr. Leslie, could you speak a little louder? I'm not sure if they heard your comments, but just to reemphasize, you said you've been working with staff for over a year.
Over a year now on this project, and in our view, the staff has produced an excellent report. We want to thank Mr. Goldbrook, Mr. Dubik, Mr. Hurwitz, who's running Marathon right now, we know, and Ken Mack and Andrew Bryce, who certainly had a hand in preparing the report. Now, the report recommends our application subject to 4 conditions. We agree with and accept the recommendation and all of the conditions set out in the report. Your planning department are your experts, and they very carefully and comprehensively review our application. There is nothing in your staff report that we take issue with. We therefore request respectfully that you approve the recommendations of your staff. It should be noted that the staff of the region of Niagara has also reviewed this application, and it's concluded that it's supportable, in their view, subject to several conditions. We agree with and accept all of the conditions prescribed by the region municipality of Niagara. And as is noted in your staff report, the proposal complies with your own official plan, the region's official plan, provincial policy statement and growth plan, and all other related policies in the city, the region, and the province. All of the agencies circulated with this application have indicated support or no objections as the case may be. And wherever these agencies have suggested conditions, we agree with those conditions and agree with all of them being imposed. Now, it's important, as your planner has indicated, that you realize that this is an official plan amendment only. If approved, and I think it's important for people to know this, if this is approved, we have no development rights to build any buildings that are proposed on this plan unless and until we satisfy all of the conditions set out in the report. In other words, this is a first step only that still requires a full further hearing, consultations, and appeal rights for zoning bylaw amendment, together with a site plan development and bonusing agreements, as well as architectural peer review, and many studies that we would need to fund to complete to the satisfaction of the city before any development can take place. All of this is subject to the 4 main conditions set out in the staff report. The first condition that's set out in the report, as you know, deals with the conservation of the Loretto building. And we have put forward an application that does more to preserve this building than anything else could. The design that we come up with to preserve and enhance this building will be discussed by Mr. Lasdell momentarily, but I think you'll be quite impressed with it, and it preserves and enhances the existing Loretto building. In addition, as the planning staff has indicated, we've agreed to set aside all of the lands to the east of the building as a limit of the property to the gorge. Now, just to put that in perspective, that's 21% of the total amount of land. And that strip is the most valuable piece of property because it's closest to the gorge. So we're leaving that open. You can imagine the cost of doing the renovations in the millions of dollars to conserve and enhance the building. And you can imagine the value of keeping the easterly section of this property vacant, not developed, environmentally protected, not used for anything but used to a meadow. Now, those are two very, very significant things that this developer has done. To put it in perspective, there is a great deal of high-rise development to the north of this property, and obviously because of the size of other properties like Meredith and Embassy and Sheraton, which I happened to recommend when I was the CAO, they haven't provided anywhere near that kind of setback from the gorge. They don't have the property to do it. But we do, and we're providing it, and it costs a lot of money to do it, and it's very effective in terms of providing support for the Loretta building. Additionally, a third thing that we're doing with respect to this, as the plan has indicated, we agreed to pay for an impact study, heritage impact study, that you will engage the developer or the consultant to do. We will pay for it, and the recommendations of that heritage study we must abide by. And they may very well impact on where this development goes, because those recommendations will direct themselves towards preserving and enhancing all of the heritage aspects of the building. So, with respect to the first condition that has been put forward by your staff, we fully agree with the condition. We intend to abide by all aspects of it. We're setting aside a valuable piece of property, conserving and enhancing the building, and we're submitting ourselves to a heritage impact study. The second and third conditions in the report have to do with planning, following the guidelines, the TAD guidelines, TAS guidelines, and making sure that the building is developed in, or buildings are developed in an appropriate fashion. The TAS guidelines were put into place, worked at when I was actually CAO, and I know that they were intended to direct development, high-rise development in the short school. And I know for a fact that in discussing the work that was done at the time by Mr. Bloomberg on behalf of the city, that this particular site was intended for high-rise. It was ever to be not used by the other sisters, and so this is, as the plan has indicated, a logical extension of high-rise. Now, what we've done is something that no one else has done in the city. No other development has ever been brought forward, has never been approved by this council with respect to high-rise development, that completely abides by the letter of EPC's the TAS guidelines. No other development that has come forward has done that. We have produced a plan that conforms entirely with the TAS guidelines, and in fact exceeds those guidelines. And what's more, as the report indicates, those guidelines, which have been suggested to you, are only guidelines and need not, in some cases, be fully followed, are not only being fully followed by this particular development, but we are agreeing with their being added to the language of the documents, that is the official plan amendment, so that they are more than just guidelines. They're going to be the regulations, they're going to be the laws. That's never been done in the city of Niagara Falls. We're producing, as you'll hear, the least intensive development of high-rise that has occurred in this area. This is a development that, by complying with the TAS guidelines, takes into consideration all of the markers that are set out in the TAS guidelines, including separations of buildings, articulation architecturally, wind studies, shadowing impacts, and all the things that the TAS guidelines suggest require we're abiding by completely. So we're doing more in terms of planning and conforming with your planning regime than anyone else who's developed high-rise in this city. We're taking advantage of the size of this site, obviously, But we're doing it the right way. We're separating the buildings, we're scaling them down, there's a gradation from one end to the other end, so that we're doing everything that your staff has suggested. The last one of the requirements or the conditions that has been set has to do with the entering into of an agreement with respect to bonusing, and that's a Section 3 starting agreement. And as I think many of you know, I acted for the Hilton when they entered into a similar type of agreement. They're actually the only development who has ever entered into a bonusing agreement with the city. And they had about 54 stories, and they paid $1.25 million, and that $1.25 million has gone directly to the arena project. This project will be subject to the same type of calculation. But in total, there are more stories above 30 in this project than 3 buildings, so that there will be more in the way of contribution. But that contribution of $1 million to $2 million in bonusing pales in comparison to the investment involved with this project. The investment, the private investment in this project will be between $200 and $300 million. The jobs will be in the thousands, the taxes will be in the millions. And I know that this council knows that it has to deal with an economic situation out there that involves people who are looking for jobs. The unemployment rate in this area is between 10 and 15%, and this needs to be addressed. And here you have an opportunity to approve a properly planned project where the developer is putting forward not just the project that conserves the heritage features, sets aside as environmentally protected a large piece of property, pays all of the development fees, development charges, but also is creating through this investment the opportunity to have people working in this community, which is something that I know we all know needs to be done. So, Your Worship, all of the aspects of this report, as far as we're concerned, are acceptable to us. There are many conditions. We have to comply with archaeological studies in order to deal with the grave sites. We have to build the wall in accordance with what our neighbors to the south have requested. We intend to deal with them, to enter into discussions with them that have been suggested tonight, and I'm sure we'll be able to resolve all of our problems. So we would ask you to accept the recommendations of your staff, subject to all of the conditions that we set out, and allow us to proceed to the next step of this development. And with that, ask our architect to come forward and go over the design.
Thank you, Mr. Lustig.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Peter Lasdow, architect for the project. In order to familiarize yourself with this project, could you maybe go back to one slide?
Sure.
Okay. I'll just first begin with the existing site as it is. It's 7.5 or 7.4 acres. To the west side is the new proposed convention center. To the north is the Sheridan Hotel, south the Mount Carmel Center, and the Falls View is towards the east. The building itself is it was first constructed with the Loretta Sisters. The Loretta Sisters, when they first came to Niagara, they settled in a formal hotel on the site, which was later demolished. That's the small photograph that you see on the bottom of the page. The existing building, as you see it today, was built in 3 stages. In the 1870s, the first stage was the north block, that you see on the site with the mansard roof that has been still intact or retained. In the 1890s, there was a central block that was built, and in the 1920s, on the south of the property was the final addition or final block that was constructed. In 1938, however, there was a fifth floor that was burnt, and a lot of the architectural features, which I'll show later, were lost in that fire. The existing plan also was, which never did happen on it, we do have drawings for it, but the chapel was to occur on the west side of the building, which is along Stanley Avenue. So that facade was never fully realized or completed. When one reviews the buildings, there's evidence of modifications that occurred over the years. If you look at that particular photograph on the upper part, you can see large steel trusses or I-beam sections that were added later to support the main structure, which there's a chapel that occurred beneath it. So there's been a lot of changes and modifications that have happened to this particular building over its history. Now, it should be noted that this proposal is intended to show only the blocking and massing of the project and constitutes the first phase of the rezoning process. This presentation deals with a more philosophical approach and also provides evidence that technical considerations can be met with respect to planning standards, guidelines, and principles. The design should not be taken as final solution with respect to the detailed design. It should be viewed for the purpose which it was intended, which is to show a cohesive master plan for the site's development and the type of massing required for the feasibility for the number of hotel and condominium units the site can accommodate, and how it relates to the official plan amendment requested. The master plan, as you can see from the model and photo that's there, is there are three distinct building masses. There's the tower that's the 42-story tower up the north. There's the central 57-story tower, and there's a 32-story tower to the south. And there's a gradation that happens as it goes south, that it becomes smaller. All of them within their framework, their uses can change depending on what the developer later intends to do with respect to the condominium market or hotel market. As you can see in the photograph and the model, the existing Loretto building is to remain, and it's to be incorporated within the central tower. Also, the towers, as you noted and was mentioned by Mr. Lustig, are set back from the escarpment's edge, and the entrances for the south and central tower are off of Stanley, and the north tower entrance is off of Livingston as requested by the planning department. The north tower, which is the one with the ball on the top, this building's mass is to be the same for both a 40 and 42-story building, and the designs provided allow for two building types: condominium, which would be a 40-story building with 300 units and 420 parking spaces and associated amenities. The hotel is a 42-story structure with 680 suites and 482 parking spaces and associated amenities. The central tower is the building design keeps the historic Loretto building and uses the area it provides for the amenity areas for the hotel. 57-story has 800 suites and 545 parking spaces with its associated amenities. The south tower, which is on the right, that's the 32-story tower. It has 230 units with 326 spaces, which are condominiums, or it can be a 32-story, 484-suite, 332 parking spaces. Now, when we look at the overall plan, what we see are the lands to the east of existing Loretto. They're to remain intact. A large percentage of landscaping is to occur on the site, which I'll mention later, which is over 36%. and all parking is to be contained on the site, either underground or within the tower podiums or surface parking. Now, as an architect, there are two tasks which must be addressed. The first one is to create a philosophy with respect to the development of the site, and the second is the balancing and incorporating many design criteria or necessary objectives of the design. In this particular instance, our philosophy, dictated by the owner, is to retain the existing Loretto building, develop a project around her, restore her, and provide her with new functions to make her useful again, in order to sustain her life so that her heritage and architectural value can be enjoyed by ours and future generations. Now within the design of any particular project, there's always a balancing act that occurs between many elements of, you can never fully develop a project which satisfies the criteria of every issue that occurs in building design. And the balancing of this design, we have a program that's provided by the client for the projected needs and finances, the planning principles, bylaws, guidelines to be met, and provide for what the City of Niagara Falls planning staff sees as appropriate to the development of the site, setting considerations with respect to the massing and sensitivities to the site, development, consideration given to the architectural and historic nature of the buildings, parking, consideration of the impact on neighbors, technical aspects, and considerations for construction and construction costs. Many times in the balancing of these elements, there are times conflicts occur, and this is where judgment and compromise is used to provide the best overall solution. I would submit to Council that tonight we present our best solution considering all the design parameters we've been given. With respect to the City's planning guidelines and principles of stat study for high-rise development, simply put, the project attempts to meet all the City of Niagara Falls TAD study guidelines with respect to built form, an accepted high standard which addresses built form controls, including the 4-story podium, 15-story feature, roof feature, separation between towers, separation to lot lines, the 20-foot landscape strip and parking areas, city streetscape, parking on site, and parking to meet the City of Niagara Falls bylaw standards. It should also be noted we agree with all of the recommendations in the City of Niagara Falls planning staff report. And one of the things that we do have that did allow us to do what we did is we have a 7.4 acre site which allowed the development to conform to those guidelines, and we took advantage of it. And you can see with the model that's existing, you can see the large gaps that occur, and the undulation of the different masses in the model, which break down that wall, which everyone has been having major concern with. The other initial studies we've done, which will be later included in our rezoning application, is initial shadow studies on June 21st and September 21st indicate that there is no impact on the residential properties. Now, with respect to the heritage of the building, this is the way Loretto first looked, as you would see in the 1920s. What happened in 1937 was there was a fire, and it destroyed much of the architectural features of the building, including the central cupola and ornate mansard roofs. Also mentioned previously, the philosophy or intent of this development is to retain, further enhance the Loretto building due to its historic value. And how do we propose to do this? First of all, is to provide a development which surrounds Loretto as its center, giving it prominence. Second, reinstating its architectural features of the original cupola and ornate mansard roofs with the model in a conceptual way show. And creating new uses for the old building within a proposed 800-unit hotel, and give it a new life, protecting its historic value and the City of Niagara Falls heritage. Now, on the west side of the building, what we see is this image, and And due to that fire, there is the loss of a cupola, which would have once been on that side of the building as well as the mansard roofs. And what's left is this stone building that really has a utilitarian look that would replicate most buildings of the 1800s that have been industrial, that have been a school. So much of its architectural value has been lost. Also, what happened is there's been all these ad hoc additions, and you can see the garages that have been added. There's a mechanical room addition that's been added to the building. All these things have negated any of its architectural value over time. So what do we propose for this existing state? We propose to reinstate the original roof and features, remove the ad hoc additions, restore and repoint the existing stone facades, provide a 6-story atrium, which these photographs show, between the existing building and the new tower, to expose the original facade to the west, to Stanley Avenue, and also within the hotel lobby. In conclusion, with respect to the development of historical, or our philosophy with developing this project historically, it really is that the treatment of the Loretto building, we want to make a clear distinction of it and what was existing, and contrasting that with what is new. Now, again, respecting heritage, if you look at old photographs or paintings, these are 2 examples. Loretto always on the escarpment played a significant role with its presence. To convey to study this view, what our office did was to make sure that 100% of this east facade be always exposed to Queen Victoria Park as the photos had showed originally, and to the American side. Our firm prepared a view study with photos of views provided from all areas of the park. With the building's masses this way, we currently positioned on the site to ensure Loretto's historic presence above the escarpment will always be maintained. This leads me to the historic landscape setting of the original building. The architect's rendering of these 1870s showing landscaping area in front of the Loretto building of Niagara Falls. It is the owner intent to dedicate approximately 1.6 acres along the entire east side of the site to not be developed, and retaining this area as per the original design. This accounts for 20.9% of the entire site area and comes at a major cost to the owner. As a percentage from his original land purchase, its value is $3,120,000. Also, the land east of Loretto is one of the most prime pieces of land on the escarpment facing Niagara Falls. It is 716 feet long, the length of well over 2 football fields. It accounts for over half of the Embassy Suites and Marriott site of 3.08 acres, which contain approximately 1,100 hotel units. Additional costs due to the restoration of the Loretto building, which currently has been estimated at $3,500,000, and the cost of the land, which has been designated for no development at $3,120,000. The total cost to retain the Loretto and associated landscape is near $7 million. With respect to the overall landscaping of the site, in order for the site's landscaping to be consistent with the block which the Loretto site and the Mount Carmel site occupies, the Loretto development, when completed, will have been approximately 36.6% landscaping for the entire site. The TAD study guidelines and tourism commercial zoning allow for 0% landscaping and would allow for a 4-story building to be built right to all of the property lines. No other recent hotel development comes close to the percentage of landscaping proposed. The statistics show the intent and sensitivity with respect to the landscaping and the development of the site. In the last few weeks, having met with members of the community and comments made at tonight's council meeting, I've heard concerns with respect to this development. To make it clear, the owner and his team of consultants are 100% supportive of the City of Niagara Falls staff report as it relates to the official plan amendment. The concerns I've heard are of a nature to be addressed at the rezoning and site plan agreement stage. However, we feel it would be fair, considering the request we are making to council tonight, to address those concerns. The concerns include the establishment of a line of Loretto's building facade where the development is not to occur. The second one is the wall between the south towers, four-story podium, and the existing Our Lady of Peace Church and Carmelite property, historic pathway for the noise and the existing building or existing church's structure, and 5, parking. With respect to the line east of Loretto's facade where development is not to occur, it's suggested the request is all the lands running north and south in alignment with the existing buildings, east facade be protected, represented by the red line you see going across the face of Loretto. There is, however, no evidence that this hardline approach will provide the best total solution, and the city's planning staff understand this. The city's planning staff recommendation is this line be determined at the rezoning stage when further information is provided from the heritage study, archaeological study, heritage landscape study, architectural peer review. And that the owners, with respect to this, they concur that this area is to be protected in accordance with all planning staff's recommendations. What happens when you move these buildings? And what I want to make clear tonight is that it's easy to just generate a line and you say you can't go beyond this point. But what happens is a lot of other technical aspects happen. If you take, for example, the south tower, if I were to pull that back as suggested, what happens is because the line on the south lot line is angled, that mass actually starts to approach and come towards the central tower. And by doing that, the spaces between the towers become short, the distance becomes short, and no longer can we achieve those ideals that we were trying to do with TADS. The other thing is by moving the buildings more and undulating more of that mass is potentially brought down in terms of being just one straight wall, which has occurred initially on other parts of the city. I would also admit that the establishment of a straight line would architecturally have a negative effect with respect to the massing of buildings. The following study shows, like, if you have a straight line, you really can't tell which structure or anything has any special significance. However, recessing the main block, which would be Loretto, indicates its importance. Architectural references would include, like, Versailles or even the Canadian Parliament buildings with the central block. They're taking the same reference as what we show here in this particular photo. Also in support that wherever the establishment of this line will be, it has little to do with the total context and experience of the frontage along Loretto site. Like, the reality is the front of Loretto's Park, when you look at the photo on the bottom of Victoria Park, when you look out the front entrance of Loretto, what you see is just continuous green that comes out from it. So it's for that reason, it's not as significant an idea that some people would make it out to be. The second concern more specifically deals with Our Lady of Peace Church and the Carmelites property. From Our Lady of Peace Church, there's a concern that the construction of the south tower, which was initially proposed to be approximately 2 feet north of the south lot line, would be built so close to the church and the Loretto Sisters' graves that there was concern about that. You can see in the photo there the little black cross and the little hedge that runs along. The little hedge that runs along is approximately where the sight line is, and the first grave is where that cross would be. The Carmelites' concerns that they would lose their view through to the railroad property, and the treatment of the four-story podium wall by the treatment of the four-story podium wall and also that there would be interruption to the retreat setting of their property. In response to these concerns, we provide the following comments and proposals. For Our Lady of Peace Church, the first comment we would make is that it's common for existing historical churches to be flanked by larger structures. Two, that the construction shoring techniques would allow buildings to be built closer right to the lot line. However, listening to concerns of the grades and exactly where they are, we reviewed the plan, and our proposal would be that we move the south block an additional 5 feet away from what we originally had from that lot line, and that would give approximately 7 feet from the lot line on its easterly corner and 5 feet on the westerly corner of that podium. With respect to the Carmelites' concern, what you can see in the photos is that we're proposing that we provide an architecturally treated wall, that we break down its mass with a cornice that occurs at 3 stories. We undulate the wall. We provide pilasters. We provide arches in it, and also another idea that was suggested that it could become a living wall, that it could be just made to be overgrown with plants and plant material. The advantage of the four-story wall with respect to the other concern, where you have one active area, which would be where this particular development is proposed, and the Carmelite area, which is more of a retreat or passive area. The introduction of this wall, this four-story podium wall with no penetrations, is actually a good thing because it provides a definite solid buffer between the two activities that exist in this block. Now, another concern...
Mr. Lesdow, just a point. We have a counselor who'd like to ask a question about the wall while you're on that subject, if you don't mind. Counselor Ine, to that point.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Lesdow. Mr. Lesdow, Mr. Perry spoke earlier and said that you had got together and you had spoke again. When we were out on the property, you came out and spoke to Janice and I and talked about moving the wall back. How was Our Lady of Peace with that idea?
I did speak with Our Lady of Peace, and I never got any comment from Our Lady of Peace. The comment came from Rick.
Okay, I'll wait and let Rick do it.
Good, thank you.
Okay. The next concern was from the Carmelites, in that there was this, and you can see from the upper photo, there was this historic pathway that's always existed, and they would like to see that somehow reinstated or improved, so that their patrons can easily take that path and get to the falls view area, or down to the falls, or back to the Carmelite Center. You can see the photo on the bottom where history is sort of continued on, but you can see the state of the pathway. The pathway is on Niagara Falls property, and the request would be that it would be upgraded, and that part of the Section 37 funds for in lieu for building height be used as part of this property improvement. Now, the other concerns that I had gathered was the issue of noise, and that was one where there was noise during construction. What generally happens in construction is that on Saturdays and Sundays, evenings, construction doesn't really occur. If it does occur, there could always be some kind of schedule that could be made with the construction group or crew if their services being held on certain times that they could not do their work during those times. The other thing is that the church is not a residential use and is used only at specific times. Historical churches exist in urban centers throughout the world with no impact or disturbance on them.
The other issue was the existing church, where we're doing heavy construction on the one side, and how does that affect the existing historic structure of this church? And consideration must be given to this. A normal protocol is what we have is a pre-construction survey would be conducted to see the condition of the existing structure. After construction or post-construction, a survey would be completed to see if there was any shifting or moving. And generally what happens is there's usually insurances in place to cover any costs if anything does potentially occur. The Carmelites also had a concern that there may not be enough parking and that the patrons of this proposed site might use the Carmelites' parking facilities. In response to this concern, it should be noted that all parking is on site. The total parking area of the proposal is 570,000 square feet or 13.5 acres provided by surface and parking structures. The total parking provided is for 1,359 spaces, and the proposal meets all parking requirements contained in the City of Niagara Falls bylaw. To briefly recap and conclude this presentation, the proposal provides for keeping Loretto, restoring the existing building, and bringing her back to the original architect's visions, making her useful and thus perpetuating her existence and historic value, giving Loretto prominence to Queen Victoria Park, framing her in a balanced composition of new structures, providing 20.9% of the site or a 1.6-acre strip of land along the east side of the property not to be developed, retained in historic landscape area at great expense to the owner. The cost to the owner to retain the existing building and the strip of land will be approximately $7 million, providing 36% landscape of the entire site in keeping with the area to the south, a proposal which conforms to the status study guidelines and city bylaws, a proposal which concurs with planning staff's recommendations, has support of both the City of Niagara Falls and regional planning departments, does not affect residential development, and a proposal which will attempt to address all current and future concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Lesdal. A very, very thorough report. I wanted to just ask one further question that was presented by Mr. Four with regard to the matter of the woodlot. Can you address that point now, or is somebody else going to take that information?
I don't have the knowledge to comment on the value of those trees. From my observation, though, there's a lot of those trees just diseased. A lot of them are not in good. I would say approximately 60% in my judgment. But again, I'm not an arborist. I shouldn't be making comments.
Okay, Mr. Leslie.
I'm an expert on tree planting either, but what the report says is that that study has to be done before we can go further. It's
exactly.
like the archaeological study. It's like the impact study, the heritage impact study. So what the results are, we'll find out. If we have to change the design because of them, then that's what we'll have.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Okay, thank you. Mr. Brady?
Council, I'll be very brief. My colleagues have gone over the majority of items, and I'm sure you've been patient in listening to that. I echo a couple of comments. I'm going to try to answer a couple of questions that were raised as well. We have been working at this for a long time. Ed mentioned that it was about a year. According to my schedule, it's been a little bit longer than that. But nonetheless, there's been a long and thorough review of the proposal before you, and some great deal of tinkering to make sure that we want to get it right. As it's been said to you already, the city staff and the regional staff are completely on side in terms of this particular development, which is useful, and it also is a reflection of the amount of discussion that's gone back and forth. In fact, the region has decided in its comments that the OPA is a matter that is for this council to decide. Therefore, it's up to you to decide on it, and there will not be a second review at the region, and it will be decided, therefore, by you hopefully this evening. public tonight raised a few questions, some of which have been answered. I want to touch on a few of them. One is the issue of parking. I think it's been overkill, but nonetheless, this is an on-site parking development. Those podiums that you see as part of the overall and as part of the model in front of you, those are where the majority of the parking is housed, although there is some at depth as well. There was a comment about why would you mix residential and commercial uses, and it's a common practice in larger centers, certainly in New York and Toronto is becoming a larger practice. But nonetheless, putting that aside for the moment, we have a provincial policy put in place by the government that in fact pushes for mixed development rather than monochronic development. So the notion of mixing commercial and residential is in fact a part of the provincial policy. And if you look at the comments that were raised by regional planning staff, they applauded that as a part of this development. The tree preservation study was talked about. It will be provided at a later date. It will not only look at the trees that are in and about the area of the North Tower, but over the property to see if there are significant pieces of vegetation on the site, and that if there are efforts that can be made to preserve them, enhance them, or for that matter, or to remove them if necessary. Councilor Antoni had asked a question of our architect, and I interceded, and I want to read a part of a letter that I have in front of me. This is a letter to Tony, and it's from the minister who is the priest in charge of Our Lady of Peace. And it starts by saying, this is a letter to state that I am in support of your plans to develop formal property. I wrote that it's unfortunate that Loretta had to be sold, and goes on to say that he was very pleased when Tony acquired the property. He ends up by saying that he was confident that you would keep their needs in mind for your development plans, and that after talking to you and seeing your plans, I am convinced that you have done just that. So in comment to your, it goes on to say, you have addressed these concerns to my satisfaction, and I see no need to oppose your development plans. So we have been discussing both informally and informally back and forth with both the Carmelites. We got a glimpse of today the comments that were made by my colleague earlier on, and then we've also heard from myself that Our Lady of Peace has received their comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brady. I think Councillor Ioannoni has a question.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Brady. Mr. Brady, we were there Friday. Did this letter come after Friday?
There Friday?
No, we were there Friday.
We were Friday.
Did this letter come after Friday?
Yes.
Okay. So we walked the grounds with Father J.B., who gave us a number of concerns that they had. One was the disruption of the cemetery, which goes without a doubt we do not want to see happen. He also spoke to us about how when the church was built, there was no boundaries in regards to the cemetery lands, and there very well could be graves in the green space. I'm geographically challenged, so the green space to the east. Thank you. And under the Cemeteries Act, if you dig there and there's graves, you have to stop. So what are the provisions if that happens? Because our question to Mr. Lesdow and also to Tony, who took us on a wonderful tour of Loretto and my dad, was for this development, I don't have a problem with the middle tower. I have a problem with the north and south tower, particularly the tower strictly beside the church. And I couldn't understand why it couldn't be moved more street front on Stanley, because Mr. Lustig made a comment that somewhere along the most valuable part is the proximity to the gorge. And quite frankly, I disagree. To me, financially, the most valuable part of this development is that it's directly across the street from the new convention center. Like, let's be honest. You couldn't get a better spot than that. So I don't understand why those towers, the flanking towers, couldn't be moved more street front on Stanley, which would not have so much disruption on the church, would not have the perceived disruption on the cemetery. And very disconcerting to hear him also talk about worried that the boring into the ground might have the church fall apart. Like, you know, those are concerns I think that are valid to that church. that's why I was really wanted to know how much leeway you'd made over the weekend.
May I?
Please. Yes.
Certainly. You may or may not be aware of this, but when the sisters sold this particular property to my client, there were in fact 3 graves that were removed off the site. And they were removed from the site and they were interned at Fallsview Cemetery in Niagara Falls. So that has occurred in the past, and the sisters believe that at the time that all those that were possibly buried on the site have been removed. However, there is actually an agreement between my client and the sisters that if in fact there is another grave site that's on the site, that it can also be removed and returned, just like the other sisters were removed. So that agreement was in place already. So if that comes into being, we don't believe that's the case. Certainly the sisters, if they went to the extent of removing the remains of 3, they would remove all that they were there. So we feel that that's the case, but we do feel that we have it covered, if you will. The notion of developments being in close proximity to churches, you need to go, I shouldn't say that much, you go to any urban area and you commonly find development very close to historical churches. In fact, in Toronto, one of the ways that the skyline of Toronto developed was that the air rights over the churches were sold so that towers could be built beside them. So that the concept of having historical buildings, churches in particular, in close proximity to large structures is a well-accepted practice, and it's accepted throughout. This particular church, there's been discussions, as I've mentioned, with the parish priest, and they're okay with that. They're okay with the proximity. We can move it to a certain extent, which is what Mr. Lansdowne talked about, and we're willing to accommodate that on at the zoning stage. And we're also willing to accommodate what will look like on the wall in and about that area. So those are the kinds of issues that we think we would address. People come to Niagara Falls for a variety of things. But when it comes to paying extra to stay in a hotel room, there's one thing that everyone in the hotel business knows, and that is people pay to see the falls. And that's what is meant by the comment that the most expensive property on this block is the property that's closest to the river, because there is where the views are. And that's what the beach is. And it's classic. If we look at the Embassy Suites and we look at other developments that have occurred in Niagara Falls, I mean, they're single-sided hotels because they know there is a value in the hotel that's on the side of the river, and there isn't that much of a value that's back away from the river. Tony's former hotel, which is the Sheraton Falls, is a double-loaded building, and clearly, in terms of the pricing policies for the rooms that are on the Falls side that have the view are priced considerably higher than those which are on the city side. So we feel that what we've done is we place these buildings in a location that we can have the view, and at the same token protect that promenade that's in front of it so that Loretta continues to be protected, and in fact we put it in all the context. Some of the design issues were raised and commented about by the architect. I can go over them, but I think they've already put them in place. Nonetheless, the buildings are placed for a variety of reasons, all of which balance out the site. I'm not sure if I've answered all of your questions. That's my opinion.
Yes, Councillor, is that?
No, you did, and I'm glad to see that you've come to some sort of a better understanding with the church. It was really disheartening leaving thinking that was one of your roadblocks. And just to question what another speaker said, Ms. Grandoni said she's surprised there isn't more people here. Well, quite frankly, so am I. We had spoke to Father J.B. and said, my mind, and I haven't made it up yet, would be set on the objection you get. We got 11 emails and not one phone call today. I really thought your objection would be a lot more than it is. I know that in services yesterday it was spoke about across the city, but not one phone call, which I found very odd.
And I understand. My understanding is that the objections that was raised in the churches were in other Roman Catholic churches in Niagara Falls, but not in other
You need to comment on how the
which is the immediate abutting me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Brady. Does that conclude your presentation? Members of council, are there any further questions that you may have of the presenters? Yes, Councillor Diodati.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure who would answer this. I had asked the applicant this question. Excuse me. It's in regard to the built form guidelines. Excuse me, Your Worship. On page 5 of the report, under item 4, halfway down, I just found this a little bit confusing. The last sentence in the first paragraph says that the applicant does not want to be bound by them referring...
I can answer that.
You can?
I tried to cover that in my comments, and I actually... I advised you that... I advised you in my comments that we had agreed to have those guidelines in our documents. So that comment was written, I guess, when the book was prepared. At that time, there was some discussion about not having them put into the documents. We've agreed. I advised the city planner that that's going to be the case, and I made the comment that we're the only development that's ever had that done. We're going to have to write in our document.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that answers your question, Councillor?
Yes, Your Worship. And the other question I wanted to ask was, just for clarification, in regard to the comments that we heard from Mr. Perry, I'm just trying to understand the official position of the Mount Carmel Spiritual Center. I met today, with Father Stan, and tried to go over his objections and try to, build some bridges and work together rather than fight against each other and come up with something that works for everybody. And I just want some clarification. I understand that you've filed a notice of appeal, but if I could get some clarity on what exactly that means. I mean, what is the position, if I could get that from you, Your Worship?
Perhaps
I know
Mr.
there was
Perry.
a subsequent meeting with the developer this afternoon. I'm not privy to it, and I just wondered if we can get some clarity on
Certainly. I appreciate your approach, Councillor Diodati. I think we all had a chance to meet with Father Stan, and I know I met with him early last Thursday morning, and we discussed some of the concerns, and I think that there's some level of comfort, but perhaps Mr. Perry can explain to what degree, and he has rights, of course, as you know, abutting landowners do. So, Mr. Perry?
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, Mount Carmel has met with the developer. They will continue to meet. Initially, there were a lot more concerns, and certainly we were going to request the council to refer the application to resolve those. I feel that we can resolve those concerns within the appeal period. We don't want to lose the opportunity to appeal, and that's why we filed the letter of objection, just to make sure that we do have a legal right to appeal if the negotiations, for whatever reason.
And perhaps Mr. Perry might confirm that you can withdraw that appeal before the end of the appeal period if you're satisfied. Is that correct?
Actually, all we filed right now is a letter of objection.
Yes.
We won't be filing an appeal unless the negotiations fail.
Good, thank you. And you can withdraw that before the appeal period ends. That was my point. Yes, good, thank you. Councillor Diodati?
Yes, Your Worship. So just to clarify, so I understand correctly, if the discussions that you had today, if the results are in agreement with the discussions you had, then you're not opposed to what's being proposed tonight.
That's correct.
Tonight.
We haven't filed a formal appeal. That won't happen until after you adopt the official plan amendment, then it's the appeal period. So in that appeal period, we do have about 20-25 days to file an appeal. During that time, we're hoping to solve all those problems.
That's great. I appreciate that, Your Worship. I think that's a great approach to getting something that satisfies all parties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the approach. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Yes, Councillor Carrio.
What they're doing is not uncommon.
Right.
It happens all the time. So they're just,
hedging their bet.
Protecting themselves. That happens in a lot of applications where they file and the negotiations are done and withdrawn before the deadline.
Thank you. Yes, Father, please come forward. Just for the record, Father, if you just identify yourself.
Roger Bonneau from Mount Carmel. I want to make a clarification on the inquiry about
the graves. The grave that was dug up and the body removed to another cemetery, that grave was on the north.
What does June 6th mean to you as a special day?
It's remembering the dedication that everybody puts into this.
Loretto. So that grave was moved, but on the south side, there's not a strict line where the cemetery just ends. The problem will be, and you have to be aware of it, that there's a strong possibility that there will be other bodies spread out, going over into the Loretto property. So it's something just to be very much aware of.
Yes.
So when you say that the body was dug up and removed, it's just that one cemetery, that one grave on the north side of the building.
Yes. And Father, we understand that. There were three, I believe?
Yeah.
We understand that to be the case, and we know that the study will have a chance to investigate, and if there is any chance of the desecration of the body, that would be prevented. So we understand that point.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. And knowing that the history may not be, those records may not be kept in detail over the great number of years that have gone by, that possibility exists. And I think the proponents understand that point. So members of council, I think the study, as we heard from Mr. Lustig, would reveal that if there were anything further, if anything was found, much like they do on other historic sites, and of course the archaeological digs when they have even native bodies found. Any other questions from members of council? Okay. Having seen none, then, the public meeting with respect to the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. In the pleasure of council. Yes, Councillor Diodati.
Yes, Your Worship. I would move the recommendation as it's here today. Your Worship, I feel that both parties have come together. I think we've done enough research, and I know there's a lot of misinformation in the beginning. I also understand that Mr. Zapatelli is one of those good corporate citizens that does the right thing. He has a history of that, and I think a lot of our objective is to save the building. I was one of the ones that fought for the heritage designation a few years ago. We weren't able to get that, but our objective was to save the building. And this group is prepared to restore, preserve, and protect. And we're not talking a paint job here. We're talking several millions of dollars to bring it to its former glory. And I think if that is our ultimate objective, then we're on the right path. There's some give and take. I think this is a classic case of give and take. And there has to be some incentive for a developer to want to do that. Otherwise, the sisters would have done it on their own. Obviously, there wasn't enough money in what was there. And I'm satisfied that here, I think this could become something of a stimulus for Mount Carmel Spiritual Center to drive more traffic there. I think this could be good for the parish of Our Lady of Peace. I think it'll be a nice addition. And as well, Your Worship, I'm glad that the two groups have come together, that we can maybe make this package that much more desirable for both groups. So for those reasons, Your Worship, I would support the proposal and move the motion.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Carey, you second the motion?
Yes, Your Worship, make some comments if I may.
Yes, certainly, you sure may.
Your Worship, it's my feeling that the staff has not given the ship away in the recommendations. The staff has put some very onerous conditions in the recommendations. For anyone who's done any developing in our community who understands these conditions, they're very onerous conditions. To restore and maintain the Loretto building is a major undertaking. Not many developers, I don't think, would even entertain it. So I think that we've got a good applicant, honest and trustworthy applicant who will do what they say they're going to do. They've proven that in their endeavors in our community before. The studies must be done and adhered to. And in some cases, this may make some of the towers not worth doing. But they've agreed to do the studies and adhere to whatever comes out from the studies. So I think that the people that are here can take some comfort in knowing that our staff has put some very tough conditions on this application and that these people have to adhere to it. And it's our job to see that they do. And I will support it under those conditions. The only question that I had was in regard to the Section 37 money. I noticed a comment that was made by the architect that the Section 37 money, some of it could be used for a pathway. I'm not sure that I agree with that. I'm not sure that I agree with the Section 37 money being used for anything other than things that benefit the community, not something to benefit one of the adjacent property owners. That'd be the only question I had, Your Worship, and how we used our Section 37 money.
And Councillor, as you know, that's subject to negotiation, certainly with staff and the proponents, so maybe they can come to terms. At the time we get to that point, you may want to bring that issue forward again.
I would like a recorded vote.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Angelo.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a couple points as well. I wanted to talk first of all about the historical aspect of Loretto. I believe it was only 3 years ago that this council was asked to designate Loretto as a provincially recognized heritage site. And interestingly enough, Your Worship, and I remember it quite clearly because it was a very, very close vote, it was the Loretto sisters in the end that asked us not to put the designation on the property. So what we have, Your Worship, is we have a piece of land that doesn't have a heritage designation, but that has a lot of historical significance in Niagara Falls. And I believe, Your Worship, that the developer has noted this and has been very sensitive to this in the plan that he is proposing to build. Part of the plan, Your Worship, sterilizes more than 20% of the property, and that is the property that would be east of the building that would have the best view of the falls. And part of the plan as well, Your Worship, talks about restoring in full and also preserving the entire Loretto Academy as it once was. And Your Worship, I think that the last point was already made by Councillor Diodati, but I think that it should be echoed in the sense that the planner that's representing Mount Carmel has already told us that they are in favor of the development and that they will choose to file an official objection until such time that their concerns are met, but that they also believe that their concerns are going to be met. And once they are, that they will be in favor of the proposal.
Certainly.
Those are my comments.
Appreciate the comment. Yes, Councillor Maves.
Yes, Your Worship, I attended with both Father Stan on Thursday, and as well I attended with Mr. Zappatelli this morning. I've looked at the properties, and I'm very pleased that all the care has been taken in these proposals. I'm very pleased with what staff has done. And I guess everybody was concerned about the grave sites, and it looks like that's been addressed, as well as the church itself. So I'm prepared to support this motion. I think that if you go to any big city, you're going to find beautiful churches. I was in New York City last year, and a fantastic church, the most fantastic church I've ever seen was right downtown. So I think a lot of times this probably will be a great thing for that area. So I'm prepared to support that motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate it. Councillor Fisher.
For years, I've gone to Our Lady of Peace. For years, I have walked beside the church, and the cemetery is in such close proximity to what your plans are. I'm really concerned with the South Tower, and I'm really having a lot of problems with that particular issue. So I am not going to support the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Wayne.
I share Councillor Fisher's views. I am not going to support this. I noted on page 2 that planning staff speak of the applicant's approach with this application being significantly different than previous ones for high-rise buildings in the tourist core. And they note that not all necessary studies have been submitted, architectural peer review is not being completed, etc. The applicant is requesting these steps be deferred until a future zoning bylaw amendment application. I think we are giving the ship away here if we approve the motion on the floor. I have a lot of concerns. Mr. Lustig spoke to a comprehensive report. Well, if it was so comprehensive, why then did we get a letter from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority advising that the subject property is impacted by a significant woodland identified on the region of Niagara's core natural heritage mapping, and it's significant based on the presence of rare species? I mean, it wasn't a very comprehensive report. If it missed that fact, you can't miss the trees when you look at the property, either from the aerial photos or from the street. And the North Tower is proposed to be plunked down square in the middle. I mean, we have tree protection plans in the city. I am one of the co-chairs of the Park and the City Committee. We're always encouraging people to plant trees. Well, they plant little tiny twigs that are never going to reach the same majesty and grandeur that these trees have. Our atmospheric conditions have changed since those trees were planted, and today's trees are never going to reach those proportions. You know, the amount of cleansing of the air that one of those trees does is worth probably what 20 of the little trees we're planting today will ever do. That's just one of my problems with it. The South Tower, when Councillor Iannone and I walked the site on Friday, we were told that the burials there, and there is no boundary, the burials predate the church, which was built in 1820. There could be burials all over that area. I was shocked at the idea of a 4-story podium and a tower atop so near the church. You have to stand there where the wall of the podium will be and look at the church and look at the little graves, and you know how dwarfed it will all be, and that there's trees there as well that will also be lost. I mean, there's just so much that's going to be lost there. It speaks here of a heritage impact assessment. I don't know if that's just studying the impact on the Loretto building or it's studying the impact on the overall cultural heritage landscape. All of these buildings are listed in our municipal register of historic properties, and they're all very significant. The overall site is significant. This was John Joseph Lynch's vision from the 1820s when he was living in Ireland and saw a picture of the falls and the mist rising to the sky, and he thought, wow, this is a place where the mist can help you become closer to God. And so he not only established Niagara University on the American side, but this whole complex here. Now, this is part of somebody's overall vision from a long, long time ago. It is a cultural heritage landscape. That was addressed in the Municipal Heritage Committee staff report, which got preempted by a memo from Al Kurlovich, and it was all very strange. But the Heritage Committee's staff recommendation spoke to the architectural value, the historic value, the contextual value. It met all of these criteria very strongly, and the Heritage Committee knew that. In 2005, they recommended designation for these very reasons. You can't find an area of the city that meets those criteria more strongly than this one. And I'm really afraid that if we go ahead and give these approvals tonight, we may be closing doors that we don't want to close. I'm concerned about what the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority has had to say and how that didn't make it into the report. The North Tower I'm totally opposed to because it's going into the trees. The South Tower I'm opposed to because of what it could mean to burials, Our Lady of the Peace Church. There's just way too many outstanding issues, way too many studies that haven't been completed. This is just way too premature. We are giving away the ship, and I am absolutely opposed to this.
Thank you. Please, Carter, please. Councillor Iannone.
The outstanding issues that Councillor Wing has spoken about, she talked about the steps that we're deferring. If those outstanding issues do not pan out positively for the development, what happens? Because for those people here who are opposed to that, Janice raised some good concerns. If those steps don't pan out, can somebody on staff tell us what stopping mechanism is there in this? Because if I vote to support this tonight, is there a mechanism that would stop this? I have a problem with the South Tower more than the North Tower. The South Tower really bothers me. But is there a mechanism to stop it if the deferred items don't pan out?
Mr. Wallenberg?
Yes. As I said, this is a very kind of first stab at this development through a process. There's, as we said, extensive studies. This council has to approve the rezoning for any development to occur. It has to go through, there's an appeal process for the rezoning. There's also a site plan agreement that has to go through. So yes, there's certainly time to resolve all issues, and we think that can be done. There was a comment by Councillor Wing on the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. That comment came in late, so we apologize. It is forwarded for you tonight. That will be addressed through the tree preservation study. What we're asking for is let's see what the results are, and we can make the changes accordingly.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Ioannoni.
Mr. Mayor, I also think it's important to add that when we lost the heritage designation vote, and I was one that voted to designate it, we knew that this day was going to come where it was going to be an application for development that wouldn't necessarily thrill us all, but we knew would be here. So, I mean, we had our chance to designate it, we didn't do it. So this is just a natural progression.
Thank you. Is it to this point, Councillor?
Yes, it's not too late to designate it. That option is still open to us. The Municipal Heritage Committee has never said, oh, it's not worthy of designation anymore. And the Heritage Committee actually considered this twice in recent weeks. On May 19th, we did a site visit. And at that site visit, I asked Mr. Bollebrook, how are you planning to secure the preservation of the site that you're talking about? He said, oh, well, we're going to have it entered on title, and I'd never heard of anything like that before. The only thing the Municipal Heritage Committee, which I've been on for 11 and a half years, has ever dealt with to secure preservation is designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. So I said, okay, for our May 27th meeting, at which this is to be considered, will you please provide us with information, comparative information on what you're proposing versus designation and the pros and cons of each, because I'm not aware of what you're talking about and I need to learn about it. We never got that information. I have really serious concerns about the strength of the protection being given the building here. I've never seen anything like this before. It's certainly not designation. It's, it could be a lot of lip service. There is nothing here securing the preservation of that building that I can tell. The Municipal Heritage Committee has not been given the information that was requested on May 19th. After this motion, I will make a motion that we proceed with designation of the Loretto building.
And perhaps Mr. Bollick can address the issue. The matter would be entrenched if the approval is granted this evening. Those matters that were approved would be entrenched in the approval. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. Designating the property as a heritage designation is certainly an option available. But as staff believes that going through the official plan designation and ingraining those policies that will precisely deal with the development and extent of the development is adequate, that assures us that the building will be preserved and the lands in front of the building, the property land, will be preserved as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Just further to that, there's talking here about retaining, conserving, and/or restoring heritage features. How can you know what you're talking about if you haven't had them defined? You need to have a study like is done before a designation, as part of a designation process, to know what the heritage features are. Right now, we don't know what we're talking about. And of course, they want to restore the fourth floor and the couple on the mansard roof, because right now, if you look down at the building, it's a flat roof. That wouldn't be very attractive for the people in the hotel tower to the west. They want to restore it so that there's an attractive view directly down from the central tower. That's what this restoring is all about. And with 11 and a half years experience on the committee, I can tell you the only way to really secure preservation of the building is through designation.
Thank you. Well, members of council, we have a recorded vote. I'm going to make some comments as well. I wanted to say a few things. I'm certainly appreciative of the work that's been done by staff and the proponents. I know I had a chance to see this design about well over a year ago, and certainly staff has been working along with proponents. I'm certainly very impressed with the presentation and the outline of the details of the project, and the thoroughness to address the concerns presented by the public, I think, have certainly been addressed, but certainly we have even further backup with respect to the studies that will bring further any concerns and issues that the professionals find. The restoration and preservation of the former Loretto Academy is very impressive. The detail that the architect outlined to us, going back to find pictures that we hadn't seen in many, many years. In fact, I don't think I've seen the originals, and I was very impressed with that. I wanted to assure Father Stan and the Carmelites that I certainly, as the mayor, and I think this council, respects the Carmelite community and our city. and I assured him that there was never be a move to try to dislocate Mount Carmel by any development. They are preserved as they have been. If they were to make a move, that would be unfortunate, but I think that would be the fate of the Carmelites to decide, not certainly this council. So I want to assure Father Stan and the Carmelites that we respect the long-standing position they've had in the community, and in fact they've served the community for many, many, many years. And so I think that is certainly worth noting. So I certainly will support the matter as well. So we have a request of the recorded vote. Mr. Clerk.
Your Worship, the motion is that the recommendations outlined in PV 2009-43 be approved. Councillor Diodati?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
Against.
Councillor Iannone?
For.
Councillor Carrio?
For.
Councillor Maves?
For.
Councillor Peter Angelo?
Aye.
Councillor Thompson has a conflict. Councillor Wing?
Opposed.
Mayor Selsey?
For.
Passes.
Thank you. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Councillor Wing?
I move that Council gives notice of intention to designate 6881 Stanley Avenue under the Ontario Heritage Act.
Is there a seconder to the motion? Is there a seconder to the motion? Once again, is there a seconder to the motion? The motion fails. Thank you. Thank you. Members of Council, I have a few comments this evening. I'd like to just address some of the events that have just taken place this past weekend. I was pleased to attend the opening of the second annual Springlicious Community Outdoor Event. I know a number of members of Council were there as well. It was certainly a great success. I'd like to offer our sincere congratulations to the event organizers and their army of volunteers for a great weekend downtown. As I'm sure you're aware, this coming weekend is the official celebration of the Boundary Waters Treaty Centennial. And although Saturday, June 13th is the official ceremony, many events leading up to the 13th have begun, and I was able to attend one of these events in the past weekend, the first annual Niagara International Film Festival, and the focus of this film festival was to address the all-important environmental issues affecting our planet, which of course is one of the focuses of the Boundary Waters Treaty. Other events can be found in the program made available to you in your council package, and I would encourage you to consider attending one of these major events. Also, I was invited to join Minister Rob Nicholson, MP Rick Dykstra, and mayors, along with our Minister of Transportation, Provincial Minister Jim Bradley, and our MPP Kim Crater, along with Mayors McMullen and Burrows, on Saturday at the Niagara District Airport to hear firsthand that the federal and provincial government are each providing $3.8 million to the airport for the purposes of an addition to a taxiway, resurfacing the runway, and installing security fencing around the perimeter of the airport. I know this will certainly enhance the benefits that we may receive from the Niagara District Airport as well. Finally, this past weekend, the Niagara Falls Soccer Club hosted the first annual Sam Irafita Spring Classic. 21 teams participated in this tournament, named after the late longtime soccer club volunteer and certainly valued city employee, Mr. Sam Irafita. The Niagara Falls Soccer Club is also hosting the 50th anniversary dinner dance at the Americana Conference Center on June 19th, and council members and the public are encouraged to attend. Also, we did have supplied to us this evening, members of council, a schedule for Go Transit, Go Train, which is scheduled to begin on June 27th. It'll be 4 trips each way, each direction, by train, and 1 trip by bus from Toronto late in the evening. I'm encouraging those who wish to take advantage of this to make inquiries. The understanding that the cost at this point is $15.90 per trip each way, but there is a family pass available. If 2 parents buy 2 return trips, then 3 children will travel free. So I think that's great, a great value for the ability to travel back and forth to the GTA. We're looking forward for the great response that we may receive from both the GTA and back from Niagara to the GTA. So we'll be having more information as we receive that in the next update meeting. This concludes my remarks for this evening. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, communications and comments from the City Clerk. We have the Clifton Hill BIA budget, 2009 budget for the recommendation of Council. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Fisher. Any comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Are there any additional items for council's consideration?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you. Move on to legal matters. At this point, I'm going to ask if there's anyone present that has an interest respecting the legal matters that were given public notice. We have some information on 3 properties. First of all, L2009-25 declare surplus Montgomery Street. L2009-26 declare surplus 6592 Dunn Street. And PD 2009-46, a signed bylaw amendment for review. Yes, please come forward. If you'd be kind enough to state your name and your address.
I'm Bonnie Barkley at 6590 Dunn Street.
Okay. Thank you.
My husband and I own the Spence River Homestead.
Yes.
The property. And we emailed council in the hope that everyone got to review.
Yes, we did. Thank you.
And, each of the abutting landowners, including ourselves, made a submission, a written submission back to the city clerk earlier today.
Yes.
Just to be brief, since you had a chance to look at that, I just wish to request that council reconsider rezoning the lot in question to open space and revalue the lot prior to any potential sale to protect the natural 100-plus-year-old trees that are on the property and to preserve the view of the front of the designated homestead from Dunn Street. We recently went in front of the Municipal Heritage Committee and gained their support for preserving the historical and natural heritage of the property as it exists today. There's also an unresolved issue with respect to the services. Our gas service runs through that lot, through the city lot to Dunn Street. And those are our primary concerns that we take into consideration.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Barkley, I'd like to just say a few comments, if I may. I'm sure there's others who want to speak to this. I regret the fact that the council has not had an opportunity to have any dialogue with you. The matter that we have before us was really staff-driven. Our CAO is going to address this matter, and I think we need some more engagement to have some dialogue with you and neighbors on the east and west side of that property fronting upon your house. I'm sorry that this hasn't happened, and I think most of us feel that way, that you are certainly entitled to have some discussion. Our CAO will just address some comments, so if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we appreciate you coming tonight to address us. There's a report in front of council tonight, and what we would like to suggest is that we proceed with the declaration of the lands being surplus, but we would like to then ask council that we have an opportunity to go back and talk to the neighbors, and also through staff come back with a comprehensive report that would address all of the options that are before us, because I know there are other neighbors involved now that may have difficulties with their properties with driveways encroaching. We really have staff haven't had an opportunity to review that, but I think we need to go forward tonight to make the declaration of surplus lands. That will give us an opportunity to proceed to the next steps, and those steps probably in a couple weeks' time after we talk to the neighbors, we could come back with a more comprehensive report and outline to council all those options that are available to council.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have Councillor Wing and Councillor Thompson that wish to speak.
Yes, just for the record, the recommendation from the Municipal Heritage Committee is that the lot be rezoned to open space and the 2 parcels combined into 1 lot and made available at the reassessed value for the purpose of allowing the existing only use in order to preserve the view of the front facade and natural heritage value of the property. The Heritage Committee has always been most concerned with the front facade of any structure, the public view, and we've had some very extensive discussion over the past few days about this situation, and I wanted to make sure that even declaring it surplus tonight would not close any kind of doors on any kind of options, and I have been assured that that step is okay. We certainly don't want to proceed to sale, as the report continued on to recommend. So what the CAO and I worked out was that if the recommendation should be amended to that it be declared surplus and staff be directed to work with the Barclays and to prepare a comprehensive report outlining all options.
Certainly.
So I will amend that recommendation if that's okay.
That's fine. There's a seconder to that amendment? Councillor Carrion? Fine. Councillor Thompson?
I've been dealing with this piece of property for years and years with different agreements, and it was certainly significant enough to designate the property, and to protect it over the years has been a priority, in my opinion, by the councils in the past. And we're suggesting at this point, without the opportunity to have dialogue and discussion with the people in the adjacent area and the people directly affected, why would we not just defer the report rather than declaring it surplus or doing anything else at this point? My personal point of view is I think the suggestion about rezoning it as open space and setting it aside in perpetuity is the appropriate way to go. So I don't mind getting out additional information on the property, but that's my personal point of view. And I wonder if declaring it surplus, we're just moving another step closer to a decision to maybe sell it or do something with it that would negatively impact the area and the property that we're talking about here.
Mr. Todd?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. It's staff's opinion that in terms of declaring it surplus, any of the options that we bring back to you would require that as a step regardless. So even if it's to, for example, preserve the existing situation with the owners now in terms of a long-term lease, you'd still need to go that step of declaring the surplus, because as soon as you make that step, you've indicated that we don't need it for any public purpose, but we're willing to enter into other options that may see that property preserved. So that's why we're suggesting we get that step out of the way, and our feeling is it won't compromise any discussions we have with the neighbors.
Good. And I hope you agree, Mrs. Barclay. As I say, I apologize that you haven't had more dialogue, but I think as members of council, this was more staff-driven, and I know we have an interest and a concern in dealing with you and your neighbors as well. And certainly we have an obligation to the citizens of the city, and you can see that some of the feeling is here that we'd like to still have more details provided and to see if it's declared as open space, the potential you may have or your neighbors may have to acquire some of that without a house being built on that land or whatever the case might be. So I think we'd like to proceed on in that regard, so we do appreciate your comments. I had actually the opportunity of dealing with this property back in 73, 74 when it was first being offered as a Weaver House, and I can tell you that was a concern that at the time was expressed that lot would not be developed. It was given as part of the park dedication of the subdivision, and behind, as you know, some of the history and certainly the benefit of the beauty and the surroundings of that lot are still there, so we appreciate the sensitivity. So thank you. Okay. Anything else you'd like to say? Okay, thank you very much. So we are listening. We understand what you're saying, so we understand what your concerns are. Thank you again. Members of the council, we have an amendment to the recommendation, as you heard. Are there any further comments or questions? Having seen none, we'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Clerk, are we dealing with have we dealt with those in whole entirety?
No.
Okay, you want to deal with the rest? Okay. All right. Now, the other matter with regard to the item number 1.
I'll make a motion to approve the balance.
The balance by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Fisher. Any further discussion or comments by members of council? Yes, Councillor Maves.
Just wondering, just for public information regarding the bridge on Mewburn Road.
Yes.
I wonder if Mr. Holman could sit up.
Yes. It's on the consent agenda, Councillor. We'll have a discussion about that. Yes, you're ahead of us yet.
Okay. We'll get back to that later on. Thank you.
Okay. We'll get to that. So, all those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Move on to the consent agenda. Members of council. Councillor Maves, do you speak to one particular issue? Would that be MW 2009-42?
Yeah, I wonder if Mr. Holman could maybe bring there's a lot of people drive to work down that road, and
Yes.
I'm wondering what's going on.
Can I just...
It's only $55,000 to repair it, $2 million to replace it, and I wonder if possibly he can enlighten people so they know. I know there's a fellow who has farms there. He can't get his equipment across to spray his crops, and he has to go all the way down to St. David's and then back up to spray some crops on the other side of the track.
Yes.
So
Councillor.
we can just get some
Okay,
dialogue on
Mr. Holman, perhaps I can just shed some light on that for a second. I received a call today, and maybe I can just tell you, I wanted to update council when we discussed this. I was attempting to reach Mr. David Miller, who's the Vice President of Government Affairs for CN Rail, over the issue of the train that traverses our city, to arrange an appointment with him to meet with our transportation, our Train Committee, and it's an ad hoc committee, as you know. And in the interim, the Mewburn Bridge was being closed. I have had a comment and call back from Mr. Frank Minden, who's arranging for possibly the manager of the Ontario region to meet with us and to discuss with our city staff the issue of the bridge. I did hear the same concern, Councillor Maves, that you have from the residents who use that bridge, some of the farmers and the people who maintain some of those lands in that area. So I wanted to advise you that Mr. Frank Minden said he'd be getting back to us within the next 24 hours with the appropriate individual to be able to deal with the issue of the bridge. He's aware of the closure. At the time the closure took place of the breakdown of the train, he was the one that called our offices at City Hall to let us know what arrangements were being made. But further, the matter of the Mewburn Bridge was brought forward to his attention through David Miller's office and in Ottawa, and we'll see what that would bring to us further. Mr. Holman, do you want to say anything further to that?
Just a further update, Mr. Mayor. We've arranged to meet with representatives from the region and the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake on Tuesday, the 16th of June, to coordinate interim arrangements for emergency service response and potentially what could happen in the event that we don't have a solution before winter maintenance is required. I'm not expecting that we'll have a solution for this winter, but we are looking at options, including a level rail grade crossing at that location, at least to allow traffic to access. I have received about a dozen phone calls from residents and non-residents, residents of the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. So it is an important road that we want to look at reopening as soon as possible.
Great. Councillor Dizdani.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And there was that comment. I had also marked this one to be pulled for discussion. The bridge is owned by CN. My question is, in regard to removing the bridge and making it into a level crossing now, as stated in the report, are we talking that being an interim measure until the bridge can be rebuilt? Because I think we've got enough gridlock in this city with trains. We certainly don't need more at-grade crossing. I just wanted clarification on that.
Sure. Mr. Holman?
No.
It's actually quite a complex issue because, as you may recall from our transportation sustainability review report, this road section is slated to be transferred to the region. So I'm kind of reluctant to commit the municipality millions of dollars for a brand new structure there that ultimately won't be under our jurisdiction. So those are the types of issues that need to be resolved at our meeting on the 16th, and we can bring back more information to the council as we receive it.
Perhaps, Mr. Holman, for the benefit of those watching and also the members of council, you can confirm the requirements or the obligation on the rebuilding of the bridge. Would you try to address that? Whose responsibility is it to rebuild that bridge if it has to be replaced?
Well, this is subject to negotiation, and it's really a matter of interpretation. If the structure was to be restored to its existing location, then the CN would be responsible for 85% of the cost. The city would be responsible for the balance. The difficulty is that structure can't be rebuilt because the design features don't match today's bridge code. We don't build single-lane structures. We don't use that type of technology anymore, that design. So in CN's eyes, their position has been, this is a new bridge serving a new need. It should be the road authority's responsibility. So that's part of the difficulty, trying to interpret who is responsible for reinstating the structure.
And we know how dangerous the bridge has been, and it's not built to standards, as we all aware. So I think many people have flown over that bridge, and it's very dangerous. So members of council, we have this report, of course, is just as a recommendation that we meet, and the meeting is set for the 16th. And if I can coordinate that meeting again with those same parties and the representatives for the CN, we'll endeavor to do that. So we'll strive to have that information supplied to council when that takes place, and perhaps we'll keep you abreast of that when it's arranged. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Carrio.
Thank you, Your Worship. On item PD 2009-40, just a sidewalk license agreement with a business on Queen Street. I think the cafe's there.
Yes.
My question is in regards to liability. do we allow anyone to use our sidewalk without first having the liability insurance in place? I know everyone wants to get up and running. They want to get their sidewalk cafes open for the season. My concern would be with the liability. I noticed that we asked for the city to be covered, a $2 million coverage co-insured by the city. My concern would be that they use it, someone gets hurt, the city could be liable.
Yes, Mr. Beeman?
We don't actually allow it, Councillor, but some people do jump the gun when they want to get up and run. In the case of this particular one, though, we have had an insurance certificate for some time prior to the agreement being signed.
My concern would just be that we have the insurance coverage in place first. If he wants to get going, that's fine.
We'll try to get them to give us that in advance in anticipation of council approving the agreement.
But we don't always do that? We try to do that. Okay. I just think our position should be firm on that aspect of it, to at least get the insurance coverage so that we're protected.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions with regard to the consent agenda? Councillor Diodati?
Yes, Your Worship. Item PRC 2009-24, security monitoring contract.
Yes.
And my question, Your Worship, was, I think it's a great thing. My question is, what about shared parks and playgrounds? Are they covered, such as the one at Notre Dame secondary school that recently burnt down? I wondered, do we have coverage for those types of structures?
Would that be okay? Thank you. Ms. Morrissey, can you address that?
Through your worship, we don't have security in all of our parks. So, for example, the one that Councillor Diodati referenced isn't one of the parks that we've had an enormous amount of challenges with. But when we do get a park such as that that's been identified, we do supplementary rotations based on need. We do monitor about 28 parks. I didn't bring the list with me, but if Council would like the list of the parks that are on the list for the contract, we can get that to you. But certainly we'll take your comments into advisement.
Okay. To answer the question? Okay, thank you. Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Morrissey. Ms. Morrissey, the skate park is on the same monitoring. I happen to have had to call our service center one Sunday when I was using the Y facilities and watching the kids skateboard up and down the structures on our new splash pad. And they were videotaping. It was a whole party type atmosphere. We've got a lot of money sunk into that pad. And I remember when Councillor Thompson was the mayor and we built that skate park, and we told the kids, you know, this is your responsibility. You take ownership for it, and if you screw up, you will lose the ability to have a skate park. And I'm wondering how much damage we've had at the skate park in the last little while, and whether we could actually have staff go out and do a real SEPTED audit on it, because I really believe that there's opportunities. You're not going to have security there all the time, but I believe there's opportunities in regards to lighting and structuring that we could take a look at under a SEPTED concept that would save us the endless security and the endless repairs I know we're having to do.
You know, that issue of lighting brings another concern, because if you light it, then you may have them there longer, and there was challenges. We discussed that years ago. But Ms. Morrissey, maybe you could give us some background.
The incident that Councillor Ioannoni referred to was unfortunately an event that was permitted that did not comply with the conditions under which their event was sanctioned. The organizers have been thoroughly consulted with, and in the future, should anything like that be permitted, we're going to be a little bit more diligent in monitoring them. Surprisingly, and it's a good thing, we haven't had a lot of damage. We've had 2 incidents of damage in this year and last year to the playground. One was an unfortunate destruction with the removal of many of our signs that were then put into the playground structure, and the other was a small, literally probably a foot by a foot of our rubberized surface in our playground area. So that said, we believe that the security monitoring is helpful. We can certainly easily do a SEPTED audit of the skateboard structure, whether it's a consulting fee, which we haven't budgeted for, we'd have to look for, or do it with our staff as a team. But we believe that the existence of the security that we currently have is very beneficial, and we concur with your comments, Your Worship, that lighting is, while beneficial in some aspects, unfortunately, when you provide lighting, you may also provide a reason to come to the park when we don't want you there.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we have the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to move the items? Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Carrio. Any further comments or discussion? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, members of council. We have three resolutions to deal with. The first one being that the Council of the Corporation of City of Niagara Falls requests that Regional Municipality of Niagara to issue debentures in accordance with the terms and amounts set out below, and further that the City confirms that it has entered into a contract for or authorized the commencement of the work listed. Do you want to deal with these separately or together? Okay. The second be therefore be resolved that the Minister of Energy and Infrastructure be requested to extend the deadline for the official plan amendments in compliance to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe by 1 year. And third, therefore be it resolved that the appropriate staff be authorized to submit a financial request to the Department of Canadian Heritage in relation to the Olympic Torch Relay and community celebration. Moved by Councillor Carrio, seconded by Councillor Fisher. Again, you've heard the motion. Any comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, are there any additional bylaws or amendments to the bylaws for the Council's consideration this evening?
No, Your Worship.
Having seen none, then can I have a motion to introduce the bylaws? The bylaws be given a first reading. Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councillor Maves. Once again, Council has heard the motion. Any questions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried.
Bylaws 2009-96 to 2009-102 read a first time.
Thank you. A motion to give the bylaws a second and third reading. Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, and once again seconded by Councillor Maves. Council has heard the motion. Any further questions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Bylaws 2009-96 to 2009-102 read a second and third time and passed.
Thank you. New business. Yes, Councillor Carrio.
Thank you, Your Worship. You can't help but notice when you drive down Stanley Avenue that our new arena is taking shape.
Yes.
I've been asked to ask when our new arena is ready to open, will the access from Thurlstone Stanley be ready at the same time that our arena is ready?
Yes. I'm glad you asked because I've been pressing the region for that, and there's been an update. Mr. Dulovic has been addressing it for me from the staff's position. We've been working, they've been working with the region, and we have that concern. So, Mr. Dulovic, would you be glad to share with the Council what you just passed on the other day?
Yeah, through Your Worship, as I've been keeping you informed, and Ms. Morrissey and her staff are well aware of it, the region has done some preliminary work. Right now it's in the hands of their legal department because they're assessing the risk, because when they take on the land, they're going to take on some contaminated properties in building this the extension of Thurlstone Road. So right now they're assessing what that impact is. I mean, I just, as recently as Friday, got an update from regional staff. Not much has changed since their email of May 12th to us at where it sits with their legal department. I think one thing that also has to be understood, at the time that the city did select that site, there was no talk of the Thurlstone Road extension. It was just the 4th Avenue. The idea of the Thurlstone Road extension came after the four-pad, after the site was selected for the four-pad arena. So we have to keep that in mind. However, staff are still going to be pressing the regional staff to move forward on it. I know from the Public Works Department they are supportive of it and would like to move ahead, but they have to deal with the risk management group and dealing with the issues there in taking on some lands that have some potential contaminations and contamination and how they'll deal with it.
I understand that we applied after, but I don't think anyone on council thought that there'd be any kind of a problem having access from Thurlstone Stanley. I don't think that any one of us thought that there'd be any possibility that we'd have to access that center from 4th Avenue. So I think it's real important. If there's anything that you need from this council, I'm sure that we'd be prepared to give you whatever you need and any type of help.
And Councillor, I'm certainly I'd be glad to entertain a motion. We are pressing. I'm talking to Mr. Cousins on a regular basis, just trying to keep updated to make sure that they're pressing on. They have had some blips, but as you know, the EA has been completed. There's a first phase and second phase identified in Thurlstone Road. They plan a T intersection between Thurlstone and Stanley Avenue, and that's been designed, and it's going to continue first phase to 4th Avenue. Thereafter, it's going to be taking a cross-diagonal direction, I should say, to a roundabout that was presented at the public meeting, and it's been adopted that phase 2 would end up at a roundabout at Victoria and Bridge. So that would be second phase. We've had discussion with neighbors in that area. The public meeting brought out some public interest, and they've been kept abreast. But if you'd like to make a motion, I'd certainly be glad to take that back to the region.
Well, I think, Your Worship, at this particular time, I think we just kept informed by Mr. Dulovic and yourself. If another month goes by and you see no activity, no action, then we'll take action at that time. But I think if you keep us posted and keep on top of it, let us know, then at that time, if you suggest that we need a motion from this council, I'd be pleased to make it.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate you bringing that forward. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Wing.
Thank you. I actually have 3 items.
Right.
The first one deals with the unfair situation to landlords who have tenants responsible for paying their own water bills.
Yes.
When those tenants leave with large water bills outstanding, because what happens is the city ends up charging the landowner, adds it on to the owner's taxes and a processing fee and a penalty. And even when the owner has made repeated calls to both Niagara Peninsula Energy and the city about what's going on, they get absolutely no information because of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act. You know, they don't know what's going on until it shows up on their tax bill with the penalty and the processing fee. And I know some of us attended meetings previously with landlords on this issue, and we never reached a successful resolution. It's come up again. We need to deal with it. You know, this really is not right, what's going on. There's got to be some sort of solution around this. So my motion, first motion here, is that staff work with Niagara Peninsula Energy and prepare a report on the various alternatives available to introduce more fairness, which I think will also meet our goal of promoting water conservation.
Yes, and I do. Yes, we have a motion and a seconder. I'd like to speak to that, so if I may. We do have staff preparing a report as we speak, and Mr. Burden, I know, will be glad to address it. This matter did come up again more recently, Councillor Wing, and I appreciate you bringing it to the Council's attention. We had a complaint and an issue, and I believe that it's a matter of equity, and I asked staff to prepare a report to bring to Council. And Mr. Burden, can you just tell us the status of that report? We have a motion that we can formalize too, but Mr. Burden, are you preparing that as we speak?
Your Worship, that report is scheduled for the 29th of June.
Okay. So do you wish to continue with your motion?
Might as well.
Okay. All right. So we'll deal with the motion. All those in, any comments, first of all, by members of council? The motion, please.
I'll read it again. It's that staff work with Niagara Peninsula Energy and prepare a report on the various alternatives available to introduce more fairness to this situation.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Maves.
No, I'm just wondering if there's some way possibly when you get these bills, couldn't the bill be in the landlord's name plus the tenant's name?
Yeah.
Couldn't there be some way that so that every time a bill goes out, it's not paid, the landlord gets a reminder as well? That's pretty simple.
That's part of the study. Actually, that's the requirement now, but it's been passed over by the landlord to the tenant, you see, and the landlord has that opportunity to do that, but they pass it on to the tenant. We have to make that point clear to the landlords. I don't think it's understood by many, but the report will address that. So I appreciate your concern, but I think we'll capture that in the report when it comes back. That was the essence of what we were talking about with Mr. Burden and some accounting staff from the Finance Department. So we do have, yes.
Seconder.
The seconder is Councillor, was it Councillor Iononi?
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Iononi. Okay. Yes. So we have the motion before us. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Wing?
Okay, my second one is another situation which lacks fairness. It has to do with the Green Oaks Mobile Home Park. And I've been hearing some really heart-rending stories out of there. You know, there's an 84-year-old man who's blind, and you know, he doesn't know how he's ever going to cope in a new surrounding. He's familiar with what's there. A 77-year-old amputee who purchased his home 5 years ago. He had a 5-year loan on it, only a year left to pay, and he was hoping he could retire from driving taxi next year after he finished paying off the loan. You know, and then there's the other guy who purchased a home there 3 years ago, which was in really, really deplorable shape, fully renovated it. Says it's probably now the nicest home in the park, and the park owner encouraged it. You know, he fixed the water line for it, repaired the sewer, and told the owner at one point to purchase all the homes in the park and renovate them. Never once was there any kind of suggestion that any other plans might lie ahead. And so, at a whim almost, people are being tossed out, losing all that they've invested. And these aren't people who have lots and lots of money. This is everything to them. It's been suggested by both the mobile homeowners and the CBC, which recently did a story on this apparently, that the Municipal Act 2006 gives the municipality power to step in and act on what's occurring here. Section 99(1) of the Act addresses demolition and conversion of residential rental properties, and in part says that the municipality can regulate the conversion of residential rental properties to a purpose other than the purpose of a residential rental property. And I've been asked, well, why can't the city step up to the plate and protect 47 families who are losing their homes? I think we need to find out about this and give them an answer. So my second motion is that staff prepare a report on the applicability of Section 99(1) of the Municipal Act to the Green Oaks mobile home park situation.
Moved by Councillor Wing, seconded by Councillor Iononi. want to speak to it?
Well, I just got to congratulate Councillor Wing. When you read the story, you assumed it was out of our realm of ability to help, and if we can help, the stories are heartbreaking. We certainly should do our best to do it.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Carrio.
Could we also include some conversation with the owner so that we talk to both sides?
Sure. Okay. Okay. Any other comments? We have a motion before us. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. And Councillor Wing, and then Councillor Pietrangelo.
And finally, the citizens group Preserve Our Parks, and I note some members are in the audience here tonight, recently emailed us photos of deteriorated infrastructure in Queen Victoria Park, and quite frankly, I found the photos shocking and really worrisome, because we're gearing up now for the Provincial Communities in Bloom competition. The judges are coming next month, and we've been counting on Niagara Parks to still be the jewel of the community. In their accompanying text, Preserve Our Parks noted that their members are saddened at the deteriorating condition and appearance of Niagara Parks. And it's not just them, but I've heard from people who are entirely unconnected with them the same sort of concerns. Preserve Our Parks states their interest is to ensure the Niagara Parks Commission meets its mission, which is to preserve and enhance the natural beauty of the falls and the Niagara River corridor for the free enjoyment of visitors while maintaining financial self-sufficiency. And they also speak to the Parks Commission's failure to maintain that mandate of financial self-sufficiency, suggesting this is due in large part to questionable procurement practices, squandering millions of dollars on enterprises like the Fury, which didn't bring in the revenues that were expected. And all this has resulted in the situation we see today, where the Queen Victoria Park is being neglected. And the problem for us, I know we don't have any influence directly over the Niagara Parks Commission, but it impacts us, what's going on, because the famous Canadian view of the cataracts draws visitors into the parks, and they don't realize that the Niagara Parks Commission is totally separate from the City of Niagara Falls. To them, this is the City of Niagara Falls, and look at this. You know, we get the praise when it looks nice, and we get the blame when it doesn't, and the perception for the tourism industry isn't good. I know we can't do anything directly, but I would help, I think, if staff were to prepare a report on the impacts to the city of both the wider economic impacts. There's a lot of parks workers who haven't been called back this year, have slashed hours, and how the aesthetics and maintenance of Queen Victoria Park impacts the City of Niagara Falls directly and indirectly. So I'd actually like to do two motions out of that. So that's my first one, a staff report on the impact on the city, just so we can get a handle on how this is impacting us.
Okay, we have a second to your motion. Councillor Ioannoni. Any discussion to the motion? Yes, Councillor Carrio.
What are you asking the staff to do?
Yes.
Exactly. I'd like to hear some comment from staff, because frankly, I think the motion is a little out there, but I'd like to hear some comment from staff.
And I was going to ask for better context. If you met Councillor Wing, just to clarify, I was surprised by the pictures as well. They're certainly very revealing. I appreciate your point. But would you qualify, first of all, it could be a long economic study for all we were knowing here, but could you just qualify what your motion, the intent of your motion, please, for Councillor Carey and the rest of us?
Probably the crux of it is the problem with the current state of upkeep in Queen Victoria Park and how this is going to impact on the rest of the city in terms of the impression that tourists take away with them, the Communities in Bloom effort.
Okay, and keep going, sorry. Is that what it is?
I think, okay, if we're worried about I just heard a comment that economic impact might be a little too big. If it is too big, then okay, leave that out. But I think that's a part of it too.
Okay, the clerk wants
if people aren't earning money, they're not going to be able to pay their property taxes.
Okay. Mr. Hirfida, would like to address it?
The Parks Commission has indicated they've seen these photos that have gone around and they would like an opportunity to respond to them at the next council meeting. So I suggest we deal with that possible invitation to them, and then maybe from there they may be further.
And perhaps, Councillor Wing, before we do that, we let them respond and come back to us, and then you can make a motion if you wish at that time. Would you feel comfortable?
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion then, and what I'd like is for both the Parks Commission and Preserve Our Parks to have an opportunity to speak at a future meeting on these concerns, because it is something that affects the whole city. The second part I was actually going to do a second motion, but this will be the only motion on this, is that we forward the photos which Preserves Our Parks has provided in the recent email to the Minister of Tourism before her June 22nd visit, with a request that she investigate personally on that visit.
There's a second to that motion. Is there a seconder to the motion? And is there a seconder to the motion?
Can I ask a question?
Are you seconding the motion?
No, I have a question to the motion. Maybe a clarification to preserve our parks. Have these pictures already been sent to the Minister of Tourism? Because there were a lot of people copied on that, and I didn't go back to look to see whether she actually was.
Sure. Mr. Clerk, would you know that?
Through the emails, and I could be corrected on this, my understanding was that some photos have been sent and they haven't received any responses to date. That's my understanding.
So we don't have a seconder. Councillor Carrion?
Well, Your Worship, I think that we should ask the parks. I'm not the person to be the spokesperson, but I think we should ask them to come down and address the concerns. They're supposed to be our partners. I think the least we could do is ask them to come down. If you have concerns, ask either the manager or the chairman to come down and address your concerns before we run off half whatever. I think that they deserve the opportunity to answer the concerns rather than just go around and send the pictures to whoever.
Fair enough. Well, we don't have a seconder for the motion, so the motion fails. So do you want to make a motion, Councillor Carrion?
Not my motion. I think if they would like to have them addressed, the clerk has already suggested that they've been talked to and that they're going to address the comments.
Yes, I'm not sure if we've got them scheduled. Come here, Mr. Clerk. Have we got them scheduled?
Not formally, no. I mean, I wasn't sure what wasn't passed there. Was it your motion regarding sending the letter to the minister? That seemed to be separate from your actual first motion, which was the discussion to have Preserve Our Parks and the MPC here at the next meeting. I think that can probably be dealt with if it's council's wish.
Well, that's right. So we to make that as a motion. Okay, is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Ioannoni. Again, Mr. Clerk, would you reiterate the motion, please?
That Preserve Our Parks, the organization, and the Parks Commission be invited to attend the next meeting to address the concerns that have been outlined by Preserve Our Parks.
Okay. All right. Any questions further? No? Councillor Ioannoni.
Well, I'd love to get the Parks Commission here because I'm shocked at what they will come and speak to and what they won't come and speak to. They're so secret. But Preserve Our Parks also had very important comments. The clarity and the ability for our council rep to talk to council and the residents, and they're alarmed the MPC cannot meet its financial commitment to the city. So are we allowed to question them on those questions when they come too? Because I'd certainly love the opportunity to do that.
Free country?
Thank you.
Okay.
Not to them.
Well, so you can ask the question. So we have a motion. Councillor Carrion.
Just to answer that, it's the way it is, and it's been set up by the province that way. So it's not the people that are there living by the rules that were put in place. I wish that I could tell more, but that's why I say invite the chairman or the general manager down and ask them questions.
And we'll ask, those questions will be asked. So, okay, any other questions by members of council? If not, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Pietrangelo.
Thanks, Your Worship. I had a question for Mr. Bollybrook, and I received a call today. I believe Councillor Thompson received the same call, and it deals with the commercial plaza on the corner of Dunn and Drummond. And on the northeast side of Dunn and Drummond, there's I guess a clinic that's been set up. Right. That's a drug treatment clinic.
Yes.
And the person that called me, Your Worship, is very empathetic in the sense that he understands that there needs to be places for people that have problems to go. However, he was wondering whether or not there was specific zoning that was required, or can these type of clinics just set up shop anywhere? So
yes.
Probably a planning question. Your
Well, we could certainly get the planning to respond. We did address this matter. Councillor Pietrangelo at the Prostitution Committee were aware of it. It was a methadone clinic that had been relocated. We believe the zoning is in place and correctly, but Mr. Bollybrook, could you address that for the council?
Yes, that site is zoned general commercial. It does permit health center as a permitted use, so it's a difficult one. I don't know whether you wish us to meet with the person that manages that office to find out a little bit more, how maybe we can address some concerns you have.
Well, yes, and Councillor, we've actually asked one of the tenants of one of the business owners who was expressing concern a few weeks back, and we just asked him to monitor the activity. If there was anything that they would present that to, certainly to the police, if there was anything out of the ordinary, or to the management of the plaza. And so they said they would do that. And again, so far it's a nondescript building unit, but it is legal in terms of the use, as you heard a member from the planning staff mention. Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Yes, and I think Mr. Crater's office is also, because it's an Ontario treatment center, is going to look into the matter to see if there's anything they can do to mitigate any concerns. I guess the problem is with the some individuals coming by with the young children there. They have some concerns about their safety, and as a result, some concerns. And it's been referred to Mr. Crater's office because it is an Ontario facility. So we'll see what they do with it also.
Thank you. Councillor Wing.
Just on that matter, I've dealt with that particular clinic in another location in the past, and I heard a very good suggestion that it should be attached to the hospital.
Yes.
You know, I don't know if there's anything we can do to take that suggestion forward, but I thought that was the best suggestion for dealing with these sort of facilities. That
members of council, that's a great idea, but I think unfortunately they relocated from the location you're talking about. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but that prescription can be filled at any pharmacy, and I've been there when they've done it to other pharmacies and throughout the city. So I've watched people while I was waiting for my prescription being filled, they actually consume whatever the liquid they take is. So that happens in other places. But so that's something I think we have to live with as part of the provincial system. That's the way the drugs are dispensed. But again, we'll see if we can take it further if Councillor Thompson wants to make some further comments. Not on that. Okay. So Councillor Wing.
well, maybe what's required then is a resolution to the province requesting a change in the way those particular medications are dispensed.
You can try that if you like.
So that they can only be dispensed at a hospital. I'll move that resolution.
Yeah. I'm not sure, Councillor Iononi, if that's appropriate.
You know what? We're talking about putting it in a hospital. We don't even have transportation to hospitals at this point. So we may be, you know, deterring people's recovery as opposed to helping it. So I can't support that, but we need to look at the overall problem, and that this isn't the way to do it.
And perhaps we can leave that with our provincial member at this point. I'm not sure, Councillor, if you want to go there, but it's up to you if you want to make that motion. But I think at this point it sounds like MPP Kim Crater has been addressing the issue. Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate action. Make a motion that we refer the concerns that have been expressed with the location there to our provincial member to have a response on any ideas or solutions to the problem.
That's good. Moved by Councillor Thompson. Second by Councillor Wing. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Now, before we adjourn, we've got a matter that came up, I think, was going to be a motion brought forward on the matter with regard to the...
Yeah. I was just going to suggest in the meeting prior to this with the downtown board, they wanted council's approval in principle with respect to the artificial ice rink in the front of City Hall for the summer months.
Yes.
They're willing to take on the expense and the responsibility. The only area that was of concern was insurance liability, and we felt that it would probably be under the general insurance policy of the municipality. So I would move that we give them a concurrence so that they can start advertising for artificial ice skating in front of the City Hall in the summer months.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Fisher. Any discussion to the motion? Councillor Wing.
Yes, how much is this going to cost us?
Yeah, Councillor Thompson.
They're accepting the responsibility. They want to utilize the land. From what
they're just positioning the artificial surface outside the City Hall Centennial Square.
Are there any costs to us whatsoever? Insurance?
We have insurance already, but Mr. Bolwick, would you want to address that, please?
Yes, they're not going to cost the city anything other than what we have in our rider, maybe in our insurance. They have said that they will have the manpower to construct the facility, and they will also manpower the
maintenance.
Teflon straight asphalt pipe.
And to take it down?
Yes, of course.
So not 1 cent?
Okay. Doesn't require any power or hydro, like that. Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Any other new business? Motion to adjourn, Councillor Carriot and Councillor Maves. Thank you. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, members of council.